today, I bring on one of my best friends, a guy who I've been through quite a bit with, and really the short time we've known each other, probably 8 or 9 years. Sheldon Souray. And man, we tried to do this earlier this summer, and we postponed it, which I'm glad we did, because I've had an opportunity to understand a little bit more about the podcast game, and so I feel a little more prepared for this. But also, I think it you've had even more months of your own growth to share with everyone. We were talking about this before we got on, but one of the reasons I started this podcast is for people like you, right, Shell, who everybody has their own version of your story. Fair or not, right? There's some truth to it. There's some stuff that's not true. And I really want this place to be an opportunity for someone like you, for someone like me, for whoever comes on, to tell their version of their story. And so rather than have people speculate about what's going on, I'm just going to ask you, pointed questions about what's going on with you and what your journey's been like and how you're doing today and why you're doing well and the things you're still struggling with, and really bring, I think the human side, especially when I bring on someone like you who's a higher profile guy, right? You've got a lot of people know who you are, and they have this image of you, right? Played professional hockey for a number of years. He made this money, always with beautiful people. He's a great, just the whole thing. We tend as a society to put these people like yourself on a pedestal and don't understand that there's really a deeply human side to you that gets bypassed. And so today I really want to open up that space for you to really show everybody who you are beneath all those roles and identities and the labels of the NHLer and stuff like that. And so anyway, thanks for coming on. And I always like to start with a little bit of background. I think, we all have a story to tell, but yours, I think, is quite remarkable from where you literally started from. And so if you could talk about growing up on the reserve and what that actually is like, because a lot of people have never been to a reserve. And so really try to paint a picture for the listener for what that was like for you.
Well, thanks for having me on, bud. It's, we've had a lot of candid conversations before. We've been through a lot together in our few years, and I think it's really beautiful what you're doing. I think this fits you perfectly in that people feel comfortable talking to you, and you've also had a journey and can relate. I know you've been, one of my best buddies for a long time, and we'll get probably more into that, but I appreciate being able to come on and talk with you openly and, with a little bit more vulnerability than I think you would at if we're sitting doing this on a sports network or something like that. So I appreciate being here and being a part of this with you, because it's important what you're doing. I grew up on a Métis settlement, which is in Alberta, in Canada, where I'm from. It's the only province that has Métis settlement. So it's not a reserve, but it's designated for Native people. And where I'm from has about 300 people. It's not a town. The nearest town that I was born in was Elk Point, which was 30 minutes away from the settlement that I grew up on, Fishing Lake. And there wasn't a lot of the schooling, the sports, stuff like that. I mean, we were in the bush. We have our summer place up in Idaho where we're doing this now, and a lot of people would call this the great outdoors and being in the middle of nowhere, and it is. But where I'm from is really taking it back to the basics, and so I grew up there till I was 5, And I have a sister who's 2 years older than me. And at that point, my parents made the decision that we're not going to get the best schooling, and there's a better way to get involved in sports and extracurricular activities and stuff like that. So we moved to a big city that had about 6,000 people in it, Lac-La-Biche, when I was 5 years old. And
the big city.
Yeah, the big city. So so kind of began my journey of being in organized sports. It was something that was important to my parents, to make sure I was in activities, doing something besides being on video games, which really we had no money for that. That wasn't really a thing when I was growing up, was video games. It was more start learning some teamwork and being a part of a team and that kind of stuff. So that began back in I guess 1981. From there we kind of bounced around a little bit growing up. My parents divorced when I was young, maybe 6 or 7 years old. My parents divorced. My dad was a truck driver. My mom was a social worker for Native kids, basically. And so they divorced, and my mom moved to Edmonton, Alberta, which was the big city. That was the big city, capital of Alberta. And so we moved, my sister and I moved with my mom when I was younger. And, from there, it bounced around to my childhood was bouncing around a lot. Like I said, my dad was a truck driver, but when I got to be about 8 or 9 years old, I don't think it was in my best interest to live with my mom with the kind of energy I had and the, what was coming with being a rough and tumble boy. So I lived with my dad, and we bounced from, community to community, town to town. But the one constant in there was that I always played hockey, school and hockey. And that was it. And both my mom and my dad were very adamant that was important. And if I didn't do well in school or put the effort in school, I wouldn't play hockey. And I always wanted to play hockey. So it wasn't really a problem. And then, that's kind of how it started. My love for hockey started when I was young, and I was put into it. My dad, when he's from Toronto, which is the eastern part of Canada, and my dad used to be a valet at a hotel in Toronto, and he used to park cars for the Maple Leafs. And he used to see these guys come in big fur coats and, Cadillacs and beautiful women. And he said, if I have a son, he's going to play hockey.
No shit.
Yeah, my dad couldn't skate. We used to have these father-son games, and my mom was the one who'd come out and be goalie because my dad couldn't fucking stand up on his feet. But he really nudged me along the whole way. He gave me he incentivized me to play, and it wasn't that hard. I love playing hockey.
Did you always have, you're a big guy, right? Did you always have the size advantage growing up playing, or? I
did. I was always a big kid, and I just loved it. I was always kind of a goofy kid,
No, you know what? No, you. There's a goofy side to you, but the people looking at you wouldn't consider you goofy.
Well, I
the
think
Hollywood looks that doesn't really equate to goofy.
No, I think for me. It was like being. I liked keeping things loose. I liked having fun. I liked having fun. For better or worse, that was kind of So being a part of a team. I love taking care. I was always a bigger kid. I love taking care of the smaller guys. I always loved being a part of the team, making everyone feel like a part of a team. So I had that going for me. I was never like the best, the most talented kid growing up ever. I just liked playing, and I would do things that other guys wouldn't do, And I made the commitment when you're young, especially getting into 12, 13, 14 years old, when your friends are starting to ride bike, break curfew, maybe get into girls, stuff like that. You kind of have to sacrifice some of that if you want to continue to try to, again, my dad was very strict, and he was like, hey, look, if you start breaking these rules, you're not going to play hockey. And I always liked doing it because we'd go to different little towns when I was growing up and playing hockey tournaments, and swim all day, and so we couldn't even skate at night. We were so tired, lose every tournament because it's from a small town. But I love that, and so I always loved hockey. I just never was that great. I was just big.
Well, tell me this: at what point when you were playing did the dream, right, of playing in the NHL? Because as you know, I played hockey. It was a dream at some point in my life. It was never. I obviously never came close to realizing that. But for you, it became a reality at a certain point. When did you realize, like, if I just work hard enough, there are some things that can kind of open the door for me to get to that next level?
When did I first dream of it or want to be a hockey player? From the time I can remember. My best Christmas gifts were getting Cooperalls. I grew up in Edmonton, but I got a Stevie Yzerman jersey when I was young because I loved Stevie Y. Getting tickets to an Oilers game. Mm-hmm. So these things as a kid were like, wow, I want to play in the NHL. Go and skate on outdoor rinks and pretend I was. Usually not Wayne Gretzky, because that wasn't that wasn't the type of guy I was going out there. No one's going to mistake me for that. But I always dreamed of being a hockey player. I wasn't really good at anything. I never thought I was good at anything else. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. When I would say it kind of set in that, hey, maybe this is a career path for you. Is I played major junior, and when I was 17.
Can you explain that we're going to have a lot of American listeners. Okay. What exactly is major junior?
So I was living in Canada. There's, systems like any other system in the States, high school football and then college football. And so major junior would kind of be the equivalent of college football or college hockey. And, I got scouted by a team. I got invited to training camp, and at 17, I made this team in Tri-Cities in Washington State, and I played a few games. And around, the season begins September-ish and ends, sometime around April. Well, that season had started, and around January, a draft ranking comes out. So where you fit in, same as college football, wherever Tua's going to go, or the top-rated college players. Mm-hmm. Same thing in juniors. And so a ranking comes out, and I'm ranked on it, and was ranked fairly high. And then after games, my coach would say, "Hey, the Washington Capitals want to talk to you. They have a meeting with you tomorrow."
So you literally, a year before, you hadn't thought about, I'm good enough to play in the NHL.
I wasn't. Yeah, I never thought I was. Again, I still hadn't been the best at something, right? On a team, really.
Right. I guess that colors a lot of our, how good we are is how good we are within the framework of our team. We don't see necessarily the raw potential.
I wasn't the top 3 players on the team. So it's like, well, I'm not,
How big were you at 17?
I was big. At 15, 16, I was already 6'1", probably. If I'm 6'4" today, then I was probably 6'1". Yep. Bigger, heavier kid. Yep. I wasn't in shape because that wasn't, the only competition I had with eating. I thought it was an eating competition every day. That was my, competitive side. So I was just big, but what I did find is when I was 15 or 16 years old, I found that I enjoyed the role of protecting guys on my team, and that came natural to me, and I was good at it. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of opened the doors and created some space for me to have a coach believe in me and say, if you worked on your skills a little bit. But how I really got noticed was that I was a big, tough kid.
Yeah, and so unpack that a little bit for the listener. What does it mean, right, to protect the guys in your team?
Well, what it means is, within the framework of a game, there's going to be your guys who score goals and who make plays, and offense. People love people who score goals, guys. Right? The skill guys. Well, in order for the skill guys, for me on the other team, being a bigger guy, I want to go and I want to try to be hard on the skill guys. I want to take them off their game with a cross check or tell them I'm going to kill you tonight,
Make them uncomfortable.
Make them get out of their, get them disinterested in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise, that's what guys have to do to your guys, to your top players. Well, whoever defends their top players the best is, your top players are going to be better if they can get out there and do what they want to do.
Creates a lot of space out there if guys don't want to touch them.
And it creates a lot of trust within your team, right? That you got a guy who's going to go out there and he's going to stick up for you. And so you're creating a vibe then of, wow, we got some bad dudes on our team. And it gives those skill guys a little, they get a little taller. They get their chest puffs out a little bit. They can, you can try to take a liberty with me, but then you're going to go deal with this guy. And so that was something that came natural to me. Was I like protecting those guys. First of all, I like watching these guys play. The best players on my team, I want them to do well because they were so good.
Yeah. It's interesting too. We'll get into this later on in the podcast, but I just finally made the connection. The way you are with your people, your family, your brothers, you've always taken on this role of protector. And it's very much something that I've appreciated because you've always taken great care of me, but I can also see the shadow side of it where there's that. And we'll get into it later, but feeling like you always have to protect and you always have to take care of someone who is maybe at a little bit of a disadvantage, and how it's hard to draw the line when you take that on. And so anyway, before that escaped me, I did want to bring that up because that is very much a part of your essence. The beautiful part of your essence is that you have a big heart and you really want to take care of people.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we'll unpack that a little bit later on, but
thank you. I've also had the means to do it, right? I was blessed with a certain skill set. And so I always, I guess going back to the hockey thing, it's like I knew I didn't want to be a truck driver like my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I didn't want to go back to my small town and sell cars. So I wanted to be a hockey player. When that really set in, though, was when I was playing major junior and started getting some professional eyes on me and having these things like, hey, you have the opportunity to do some of this, or the ability to do some of this, the potential, which is a scary word, to do some of this, but you're going to have to work.
Okay, so then you get drafted that year, right?
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
And then from that moment, from draft day until you play your first NHL game, what was the time period?
So I got drafted in 1994 by the New Jersey Devils. They had just lost to the Rangers when Mark Messier guaranteed a win.
Yep.
And so I got drafted to what I thought was probably the best run organization in hockey. And I went to training camp that year. I remember, getting drafted and putting on the jersey, like an NHL jersey with my name on the back of it, right? And that was like, wow, this is like, now I can feel it. I can taste it a little bit. And I went into training camp that year, and that was a year of a lockout. And what I did was I went in and I went in shape. I went in, probably I just went in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, really, and I did well. And by the end of training camp, before the lockout happened, I signed a contract. And now for a kid from a small native community in northern Alberta to, being essentially, I was a thousandaire for sure at that point. Now I was going to be a millionaire, right? It was huge. Now I had a contract to play in the NHL, that they were investing some money in me. And if I could do my own part of it, which was be in shape, be committed, learn, be coachable, then the reward was this monetary reward, but also I was going to live my dream,
mm-hmm.
And so that happened very quickly from when I was drafted to training camp to signing a contract. And that year, the Devils won the Cup. And I was able to go play in the minor leagues in Albany, and we won the Calder Cup there championship. The Devils won the Cup, so I just went into this organization thinking this is how it's always going to be. I'm just a winner now, right? And that was like my first real taste of like, wow, this is like I'm in it, you know, and this could be. I mean, it was the first time I've ever flown on like a private plane. Was with it, you know what I mean? There was so stated of 4 seasons. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I've only read about those, you know. So I got a little taste of it, and that was just enough to be like, this is what I want to do.
We've talked about this before, but talk about the challenges of living or playing for the Devils in New Jersey and having a close proximity to Manhattan. What did that?
There was no problem at all for me. It was no problem. Man, it was awesome because our team was awesome. We had a veteran group of guys, awesome guys, really, really great team framework, great coaches, great organization. We had a schedule that allowed us to kind of play on Saturdays and kind of have Sundays off. And so, you know, as much as I love playing hockey and being, I always like the life of it, you know? So we were going, I was going with a couple teammates and friends would come in town, family would come in town and go into New York, go out in New York, go into New York. It was, I couldn't, like if I never played another game after my first year, I would have had enough, gratitude that I'd played, you know what I mean? That I'd made it. New York City, man, that was like, it was a dream for me.
How long were you with the Devils for?
I started there in 1997 and I got traded in 2000 to Montreal. I remember getting traded, and I got traded to Montreal, and growing up in Edmonton as an Oilers fan, Montreal was like the last team in the world that like it was French speaking and all this stuff that as being an Oilers fan, they were like the biggest, and they were really good when I was growing up. The Oilers and Montreal were really good. So we hated them. And I was kind of falling out of favor in New Jersey. My off ice was probably, you know, maybe outpacing my on ice, and
I think that's important to you know, for people to understand, because it's not uncommon. This happens across all leagues. Young guys come into notoriety. Their bank accounts are swelling with cash.
Yep.
You think it's going to last forever.
Yep.
Even if you have a long career like you have, I mean, I think in the back of your mind, you think like, I'm always going to be making a lot of money.
For sure.
And so you're able to kind of balance it in some ways, right? You're still playing and you're going and you're having an amazing time socially, and you're still showing up on the rink in your mind, right?
Yeah. And you know, I've never liked getting in trouble. You know, I've never liked getting in trouble. Probably goes back to, you know, my dad saying, I'll give you something to cry about, right? And so I never really liked getting it. So I wasn't getting in much trouble. But what happened when I was in New Jersey is I wasn't playing. We had a veteran team. We had an awesome team. And, you know, I'm hanging out with celebrities and hot chicks and making a bunch of money and going to the best clubs. And that was fun. You know, that was fun. And what I realized quick enough and happened with getting traded is I'm only doing that because people weren't like, Sheldon Souray is a great guy. You know, it's like I was a hockey player. That was my identity. And that's why I was getting into clubs and getting a reservation at a nice restaurant and spending the money. And, you know, I certainly wasn't the best looking guy around. So the girls weren't hanging out with me because I was bringing something else to the table. My identity was. But
let's be honest, people watching this, you know, if they're watching the video feed of this, so they might argue you on that point. But but go ahead.
Thank you for
I'll
that.
extend you that.
I'm going to, you know, hire you as my agent. But I think, you know, what I what gave me that ability
Yeah.
to have that kind of fun and freedom was because I was a hockey player. And you have to take care of your, that was my profession. I needed to be more professional looking back at it. Now, in hindsight, the best thing that ever happened to me was I got traded to Montreal. And I remember the GM calling me, our GM, Lou Lamoriello, who I think is the greatest guy in hockey, one of them. He called me and told me I'd been traded. And there was a couple of guys who came to my hotel room. We were in Colorado. And Scotty Stevens was one of them. Marty Brodeur was another guy. These are Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm.
And they sat with me just till I had to get a car to go to the airport and go to my new team. But I remember getting a phone call from the GM of Montreal. His name is Rajon Houle, and he says, in his French accent, he says, well, we traded for you, and we got a game in Boston tomorrow. We're going to get you on the red eye tonight, and you're going to play tomorrow. And I said, he goes, you got a problem with that? And I said, no, sir. And he said, I didn't think so. I heard you don't sleep much anyways. And I hung up the phone and I said, this is great. They already know, they're going to let me do whatever I want. They're, so lucky to have me, like you said. And, my ego was nice and I wasn't getting in trouble for it. It was like a little joke, right? And I went and I played in Boston that night and put on a Montreal Canadiens jersey, which was, the NHL's synonymous with the Montreal Canadiens, much like, I guess, Major League Baseball would be with the New York Yankees or football with the Cowboys, right? And so when I put on that jersey in Montreal, something changed for me. There was like, there was, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a little bit of being humbled by getting traded and thinking now it wasn't, I was a little bit dispensable.
Mm-hmm.
But something changed. It's like, wow, this is professional. You know what I mean? And my career changed from when I got traded there. It just did.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, I think we could spend a whole podcast going through your long career with the NHL, and we will touch upon that further on in the podcast. But I think what's going to be most interesting, and I think the part of your story where the most growth really has come from, right, is your experience with injury, with what it feels like for the career of a professional athlete to come to an end. Mm-hmm. And then, in particular in your case, addiction, mm-hmm. and kind of all that comes with that. And so we'll fast forward a little bit to near the end of your career and give us an idea of what Sheldon Souray thought the end of his career was going to look like, mm-hmm. right? That kind of storybook ending, and then actually what happened.
That's such a great question. I'm glad you actually asked that, because people usually just see the end of it and they're like, now what, right? But what happened? Well, what you think is going to happen is that you're going to be Tom Brady and you're going to win the Super Bowl and you're going to win MVP and, everyone's going to adore you and you're just going to ride into the sunset as a hero, right? That's what every player, I think, thinks. The reality is, if you've played long enough, you get older, you get a little slower, your reactions are a little slower. We see it all the time with athletes who want to hold on just a little bit longer to prove that they still have a little bit left in the tank. Usually doesn't end up that great for them. Mm. What happened with me is I had signed in Anaheim. I wanted to be close. I got two daughters who were in California, and I wanted to be closer to them towards the end of my career. And Anaheim offered me a 3-year contract. And the first part of that year, we had a lockout again. And so we played half a season for him. And during that season, in the very end, in the playoffs, I had broke my wrist. I had fractured my wrist. And I had some problems with this wrist before leading up to this injury, but I got this injury and, I was rehabbing. And as you well know, you were one of our guys up here in Idaho with a small handful of hockey guys who were still playing. You were kind of our guy who was leading us through these things and making sure we were, having the fun at the lake and the golf and all that. But you were one of the guys it was important to you, I think, that we still were professionals and that we did our summer workouts and everything. Anyways, I was throwing a ball here at your house in your driveway, a medicine ball, and I tore my wrist. At the time, we knew I was going to be hurt, right? I went, I think, a couple of days after and had surgery in LA, but certainly didn't think it was going to be something that was, that was the end of my professional career. It ended up being, I tried to rehab it for that summer and going into about a half of the year next year. I was skating, I was showing up at the rink, I was trying to come back, but I was, 38 or 39 years old. I was getting older and it was getting harder and I wasn't healing,
And let's, again, paint a picture for what it feels like to be, earlier in your career. I'm sure you had some injuries, like what it feels like to be 22 and coming back from injury, right? You really have this whole runway of career ahead of you.
Yeah.
And now being 38, 39 years old with a nagging it, like this isn't the first time these wrists have been banged up.
Yep.
And now, where is your love for the game? What's that energy feel like for you?
Yeah, it puts things in perspective. It's gut check time, I think, as you get older. When I was younger, and I had a lot of injuries in my career, a lot of surgeries, a lot of injuries, a lot of time missed. When I was in 2005, I broke my other wrist and had a bad break, and it was very tough to heal that wrist. And the prognosis for my career didn't even look good in 2005. But I told myself, I just had a baby. I was married, and there was no way I wasn't going to play. There was nothing else I could do. I wasn't qualified to do anything else. And I think a lot of healing comes from your spirit and the way your mentality to that. And I just knew I was going to come back and play hockey again. As I got older and I had this injury and it's kind of, you're sitting on the fence, and the reward is always playing the games. That's what people see. People don't see the long hours after practice getting therapy, the ice baths that are uncomfortable, the not the massages, but the like ART that's really getting in your muscles and you're hurting after it, and the ice packs and taking stim machines home and treating yourself. I see Andrew Luck, who just was making tens of millions of dollars and just said, this is too hard for me. As a younger guy. And so people don't see the amount of commitment, the amount of extra work it takes to get yourself healthy. When you're healthy and you're on a roster and you're playing games, that's the reward, that's the money, and that's what everyone sees, right? Oh, you should be grateful you're playing, right? But behind the scenes, I've done all this to try to get back and perform for fans and for my teammates.
And it's correct me if I'm wrong, but at some point in the career, right, the big B comes out. This is a business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you've had your dealings with that side of it. And so now all of a sudden, it's not just for the love of the game. It's like, at what point for you, actually, was it crystal clear to you that this is no longer just a sport where a bunch of big kids are playing, but this is a business and it's fucking cutthroat?
It happened in Edmonton when I'd had an injury.
You signed a nice contract there, correct?
A really big contract. And I went back to Edmonton, my hometown.
What was that contract, just so people can understand?
I think it was 5 years, 28 or 27 million or 28 million.
So
it was big.
What years were this? Like
2007, I think.
So this is big money in the NHL.
I just came off a career year, and it was very big money. Again, especially going from the start of my career being a big, slow, tough defenseman to like scoring some goals and playing in an all-star game or two and that kind of stuff. So like there was a little bit of traction I thought I was gaining in the game, right?
Did you sign as a free agent with Edmonton?
I signed as a free agent.
Okay, so you're coming back home.
I'm coming back home.
This monster deal.
They just lost a big defenseman like me, Chris Pronger. Not like me. I mean, They wanted to. I was the poor man's replacement for him. They'd gone to the Stanley Cup Finals. They wanted to get back. I'm coming home. It was a little bit of, hoopla around it.
Okay, so the storybook side is, this couldn't be better. I'm playing for my hometown team. Again, you signed the big contract. You're arguably coming in to fill Pronger's shoes, who again was a top defenseman in the entire league. Did you feel that pressure, or were you a little bit naive to what that was going to be like, and maybe it set in later on? Like, what did it feel like signing that contract?
I felt a lot of love. So it's in the summer, I'm in Malibu. I'm getting paid. I talked to my parents about it. Hey, Edmonton has offered me this deal. I actually got offers for more money other places.
Okay.
But I wanted to go, like this kind of felt right to me a little bit, right? My dad, my mom, my family's going to see me play for the Edmonton Oilers. So that, it was a financial decision, but it wasn't the biggest financial decision. Mm-hmm. It had a lot to do with, again, I had, my youngest was on the way. She'd just been born in May of 2007. Now we're in July 2007, and I signed as a free agent. So I had one daughter who was 4, and now I had a newborn, and I'm like, I get to be around my family, and there was that dynamic. So I wasn't feeling pressure. I was feeling like gratitude and a lot of love. And unfortunately, I'd had at the end of 2007, I finished with Montreal Canadiens and had shoulder surgery at the end of that season. So I wasn't going to be ready to play the beginning of 2007 in Edmonton. So I kind of came in a little bit behind the 8 ball.
Not even aware that would be the case, right? You're just like, well, clearly I have an injury. I mean, it was
hidden.
Right? Everyone knows, but the fans are expecting 100% Sheldon Souray on opening night because that's what they're paying for.
You're getting paid to play,
come on, buddy.
Right? And so the first day of training camp open, this is my opening experience to Edmonton, is when training camp opens and you go and you do your physical testing, see how in shape everybody is. And I went in and I was sitting with 5 veteran guys. Usually what happens is the veteran guys get the best times to go in and work out before it gets too crazy and stuff. So I'm one of the veteran guys. I'm with 5 other veteran guys who were, Edmonton Oilers for a few years. And the coach walks in and he kind of looks at me and he's talking to the trainer. He said, just the guy I wanted to see. And I said, oh, you must be here to congratulate me about coming here, right? Joking. And the other guy started laughing. He said, actually, no. He said, when are you going to get on the ice? He goes, I'm looking at this and it looks like you're not even ready to skate. So he put me on the spot immediately. My very first interaction with him and with the organization. Now I got the trainer there and I got other veteran guys looking at me, what I'm going to say. And so he left and I talked to the trainer and I said, hey, did he not know that I was injured and that, I'm not going to be ready till November? And here we are, beginning of September. Said, well, we'll get you back, right? Immediately I felt the pressure, not necessarily from him saying something to me, but from me. It's like, well, I'm going to show them.
Fuck this guy.
I'm going to earn my money. I'm not here on, this isn't like a farewell tour for me. I'm here to prove that, that you weren't giving me this money, or the generosity. It was, you expect me to perform. So the pressure came from myself at that, there's some external stuff, but more internal. And I came back and I came back too early and I got hurt right away and, fucked up that first year. And so that's, that was my experience there. Well, at Edmonton, I had a lot of injuries and, leading back to, I guess, the point of that story was that, I had broken my wrist in a fight and then I got an infection in it and I got so sick that I had to take myself to the hospital. And I was so sick with a staph infection that, they were going to cut my hand off, but I didn't have time to tell my trainers and this and that. I'm hurt. The team's on the road. There's a lot of dynamics to that. And it had gotten back to me that the team thought that I didn't want to play and that I was faking an injury. And I don't know if I've ever been more mad and needing to vent on somebody in my entire life, but there was nobody to vent on. The team was traveling. I'm in a hospital bed. I'm ICU for 4 days. They're talking about cutting my hand off. I had another 2 surgeries in there. They had to let an infection out, and I had a bone in a blood. There was a lot of stuff going on. And anyways, that year goes on, and at the end of that year, I came out in the media and I spoke my mind about, if they don't, this organization is, junky, and they thought the same of me. I think at that point, there was a lot of stuff we just never talked about, and the air never got cleared on. And I probably went about it the wrong way, but I went in the media and I said some things that to me were my truth at the time. And that year goes on, that summer goes by, and that year I come back to training camp ready to turn the page, earn my money, and hopefully get traded. And they said, "You're not welcome in camp. You're not coming to camp this year. We don't want that. We don't want that attitude around our guys." And that was crushing for me. And they sent me to the minors, and I hadn't played in the minors in 12 or 13 years. Mm-hmm. And so my ego, like, they tried to crush my soul, right, and make me want to quit. And they weren't far from it, but they still owed me a lot of money. And I still knew that I had a lot of hockey left in me, and that I was just going to have to go and earn my way back into it. But that was it was very crystal clear that we're in a business, and I'm not bigger than the business. I'm not bigger than the team. You're just a commodity, and there's as much as you want to humanize it and your heart's in it and be that team guy, there's a reality that, just do what you're told. Do what you're told. And
yeah, so now and again, like, we just briefly talk a little bit about your experience with the Hershey Bears. I mean, I know it. I know what you meant to those guys. And again, this is you taking on this role of protector and taking care of people. But I think they probably expected you to go down there and be a real dick and be entitled. And that wasn't the case, right? And this has actually really resurrected your career, this whole experience.
Well, the brush that I got painted with was that I was a silver spooner, entitled, that sort of perception, which was kind of shocking to me. I thought I was standing up for things. When I was in Edmonton as well, there was a couple of things that happened to other guys medically that they didn't talk about. And so I felt I was going to say it for everyone.
You're being the drum for, yeah, that's sure.
Right. I was going to say it for everyone. I had nothing. I was making a lot of money, and what are they going to do to me? Mm-hmm. That was kind of what I was saying. Well, what they're going to do to me is they're going to paint with a brush that I'm not a team guy, that I'm, a bit of a loose cannon, and they sent me to the minor leagues. Not even to their minor league team, but they had to get permission to loan me to a Washington Capitals minor league team. I was such a bad influence. They weren't going to have me around any of their guys. Well, I accepted it. I didn't like it. I accepted it, and I thought, well, I'm going to go down there and be myself, and still playing hockey. They owe me a lot of money. And when I got down to Hershey, the guys, you said it right. There's a perception that you're coming down, you're making a lot of money. They probably, read a little bit about my life and who I'd been with, or, whatever, where I lived, Malibu, California. And they probably had a thing like, oh my God, what are we doing with this guy? And
yeah, Hollywood's a fucking long way from Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Dude, yeah. And, I'm coming in.
You were checking all the boxes on the outside, like, totally, like, with that whole history.
Yeah. And so I felt like I was going to go there and do my best and put my best foot forward, however that looked.
And let me just interject for a moment, because I don't want people to get this twisted and think that you had to kind of psych yourself up to show up this way. I've known Sheldon for the better part of 10 years. He's one of the kindest guys I've ever met. And it doesn't matter who it is.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter if it's someone who's working at the ice cream shop, someone who's pumping gas. You make everyone feel, everyone is seen. Okay. And I think that is so important today. It's too easy to get caught up in our own bullshit and not to see another. And to a fault probably, because I know it is worn on you at times, but the way you show up for everyone and the way you're the everyman is, and on the outside, again, if you want to judge by the looks and everything, yeah, sure, Hollywood, he's successful, the money, all that, but that's not who's underneath. And anybody who's spent any time with you, has interacted with you, they know that that's the essence of who you are, the big heart in making everyone feel important and really feel seen. And so anyway, I thought it was important to not misunderstand like your intentions going into Hershey. It wasn't that you had to pretend that you were this team guy. That's who you've always been. Okay. And so anyway.
Thank you for that. But, that made me feel really good. So thank you for saying that. I think for me and that experience and what I'd been taught always, right, is you treat people good. I can't imagine going through life and just thinking that, if there was a videotape of my life and my parents watching it and seeing it and go, that's you, that you're acting like that, like because you're a hockey player, or because you're big, or you're blessed, genetically, that you're going to be a dick, And I always realized when I played hockey and getting my opportunity was because I wasn't as good as other guys, that I was going to have to be a good guy. Not have to be, but being a team guy was important to me, and thankfully that came easier to me. But that's where it was giving me an opportunity to play, and that I was going to go work hard, and that I was, going to do again some of the things that other people didn't want to do. But when I went down to Hershey, I see here's guys, right? The reality of it is I can go down there and I can sulk, and then I can validate what is being said about me, or the picture that's trying to be painted. Or I can go down there and show these guys what being a professional is. It's different. In the NHL, you wear your suits to the games. You're flying on private jets. You're eating catered food, and again, 4 seasons. And in the minors, your long bus rides, your track suits, your wet equipment. You play night back-to-backs. You're like unpacking your own gear. In the NHL, you got guys, trainers unpacking all your stuff. You go back to the hotel and have a sleep, and all your trainers are going and doing all the hard work. So when I went down there, it was definitely a reality check, and like, wow, you've had it good for a long time. But it was also an opportunity to see and show these guys, well, this is what being a professional means. It means, home games, dress up, I'll dress up. I wasn't going to sacrifice I wasn't going to let some things slip professional. I was still professional. I was making a lot of money down there. A lot of guys don't make that anywhere near that kind of money. And, they have families, and some guys have like second jobs. It's just a different world, right? And so I was going to go down there, and I wanted to be just a good teammate. And I knew what was going to happen. I knew what was going to happen. I was going to go down there as a big ticket guy. I was going to go in the minor leagues. Guys were going to want to measure themselves against me. And it took 3 games for me to finally go, I'm just, okay. And I got in a fight, and I broke my hand on some kid's head. I called Edmonton immediately, and I said, what did you guys think was going to happen? now I'm injured. And now I'm trying to catch up. It doesn't matter where you are, what league you're in. If you want to run a marathon or you want to run a mile, you still have to have a certain level of, you have to be in shape enough to run a mile, right?
Mm.
And when all these guys are so far ahead of you, I think it was like 10 weeks I was out. And so I was playing catch up that year. Then I hurt my knee and whatever. So it was a disastrous year. But I was able to maintain the attitude like I'm still making money. I'm still playing in the second best league in the world. And I never let my goal of being back in the NHL get too far away from me. So I went down there. And the hope that I had was that I wasn't in the minors because my ability was keeping me there. I was there because I got in a pissing match with management. And so I knew that if I got an opportunity again, that I would go up and I'd make the most of it.
And that came with the Dallas Stars, correct?
With the Dallas Stars, yep. I remember getting a call from the GM. It was the very first day of free agency. And the GM called me. Edmonton bought me out of my contract. And the GM called me for the Dallas Stars.
What does that look like when you say they bought you out of your contract? You have how many years left at that point?
So at that point, I had 2 years left, and they can buy you out for 66.6% of what you're owed.
Okay.
And so they did that.
And then that extends the time that they need to pay you over. Is that correct?
So instead of paying me, call it $4 million over a year, they can pay me that over 2 years.
Gotcha.
And if they owed me $4 million over 2 years, then they could make it over 4 years. So it doubles the time they can pay me back. They get some salary cap relief. It kind of worked out for everyone. But there was a time when they were saying, well, we're not buying you out. We're going to let you rot for 2 years. Now, had they done that, game changes. After 2 years out of the NHL, it's going to be hard to get back.
Okay.
So they did buy me out after a year, and the Dallas GM said, we believe in you. He goes, how hungry are you? And I said, I'm hungrier than ever. And he said, that's all we need to hear. And he signed me to a 1-year deal. He said, we'll give you your chance. And if it works, it's going to work out great for you. And it's going to work out great for us. So let's see how this marriage looks after a year. And I did that. And then that year was great. Had a good year in Dallas. And then it was going to be my farewell tour. And that's why I signed in Anaheim. I wanted to be closer to my kids. And, as you get older, some of the personal stuff is as important as the money stuff.
Yep. And so now, okay, and we'll get back to, so you're trying to come back from the injury. We have this now everyone has an idea of what that history with Edmonton looked like. Mm-hmm. And this is a business. The love isn't what it used to be. It's just a natural progression. Things are becoming more important. As you just said, moving closer to your kids,
yep.
Right? Other things are becoming a priority. The contract's already been signed, for better or for worse. Mm-hmm. It's like, what am I doing here, right?
Yep.
And so the injury, though, like to deal with the injury, I'm guessing this is where the painkillers started to come in.
Yeah. So I had many injuries, as I was saying. I think I had 24 surgeries in my career, 16 years or something like that. I think it would have been 18, but my last 2 years, I signed a 3-year contract with Anaheim. So when I was playing, though, I was always an important enough part of the team that I felt like guys were counting on me to get back. So painkillers and that kind of stuff when I was playing wasn't an issue for me. I always wanted to get, if it was 6 weeks, I wanted to get back in 5 weeks. I wanted to show people how much I cared, right? And the same thing in Edmonton. Well, he's not ready. Well, I'd go out and I'd blow my shoulder out again. It's stupid, but it is. It was my ego letting me want to come back and show that I was, I wanted it more than anyone. So when I got to when during my career, the painkillers wasn't a big thing. I wasn't a big drinker. I like to have fun.
You've never been a big drinker,
but it wasn't something that was gonna, like, I was never gonna be so fucking lost away from the rink that I was going to mess with. Again, goes back to, I didn't want to be in trouble, right? So I wasn't going to mess my career up with drinking. My dad was an alcoholic. I grew up with that. I got a family. My uncles love to have fun. I was raised in that. And I knew that when I was growing up, that I was like, I'm never going to be like my dad. I'm never going to be gone for, a few days and not come back, or, be loud and boisterous at things. My dad wasn't a mean drunk. He never had to tell me things twice, but he was fun, and he'd go for 2 or 3 days. And, I was living by myself. I'd be 11 years old, fending for myself for a couple of days. Now, that's not a knock on my dad. It was the reality of my situation.
Well, I think a lot of people would look at that, right, and say, "Oh, that poor kid." Well, it's, being 11 years old and being on your own for a few days, it really, I don't necessarily recommend that, but it creates resiliency, and you learn to really survive as a young kid, right? And so those are things that I think you and I've talked about it with our kids, right? They're growing up in a different situation than what we grew up in, and it's hard to really create opportunities for that type of growth and resiliency. Like, how do you get your kids to grow a set of balls sometimes?
It's not like that. I also had my mom. I could call her back, and say, "Mom, I'm this." And if I ever felt like I was in danger, or that, I would probably be able to make a couple calls and have my dad come home, right? But he's a truck driver, man. It's the way he was. And my dad died 21 years sober. And he got sober when we go back to when I was drafted.
Oh, yeah.
My dad said, "You don't need a drunk dad around. I'm going to get sober." And for me, now having my own story with addiction and knowing how powerful that was, and that's the gift he gave me, was something where I never wanted to be like my dad. And then once I went through my own shit, I was like, I never wanted to be more like my dad.
Oh, fuck.
Wow. And so, so that's what we'll get into. But I knew that I wasn't going to ever mess my life up so badly while I was playing that it was going to that was going to jeopardize my career. Because making money and having the lifestyle of a professional athlete was cool.
Yeah.
Right. It was good.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it and the stuff that came with it. So I wasn't going to mess with that. Where things really got hard for me was the question you asked is like, how does it end? Right. Well, I'm 37 or 38, and I'm rehabbing, I'm at the rink longer hours. I'm in pain.
What's the vibe around the arena? What's being like? What are the rumblings about your injury? Why you're not playing this contract? Like, what's the basic energy that you're feeling? Is it okay, or is it I'm feeling like I'm getting sewered a little bit here?
Well, what was happening was life was kind of moving on without me. That summer, they'd signed another guy because my wrist was so they signed another guy who was going to, groom to be in my role. And things were starting to, I could see the writing on the wall a little bit. Now that I still had 2 years left on my deal. So it wasn't like I was just packing it up and that's how it was going to go down. But the vibe was, dude, it's been, you had surgery in July. It should take 2 months. Now we're at 4 months. What's going on? Like what? I'm going before practices, dressing by myself, going out with our third assistant coach, becoming more disconnected. Now, you said something which was exactly how I felt. It's that when you start disconnecting in your heart, like it's not like I'm coming back and I'm going to show these motherfuckers that I got some jam left, or it's like this is getting tough. This is today sucks. Tomorrow's going to be worse because I'm not feeling better. So when that starts creeping in, when a little bit of like, this could be it, right? If I don't feel better tomorrow, and at that time, just as part of my rehab, now I'm taking prescription meds. Now I'm going to go skate and get run into the ground to try to, have my cardio. So if I do come back, so now I'm doing that on painkillers. It was starting to get, we were at a point where it's like, what are you going to do?
Oh, and I think it's important to bring up another point. And really, one of the main reasons I'm doing the podcast is to reintroduce people, men specifically, to the importance of tribe, right? And in your case, team, right? That is your tribe. And as you're going through, like when we're going through the hard shit and we don't have our tribe around when they're on the road and you're there and you're just trying to find a reason to fucking do another sprint.
Totally.
And they're just not there. And maybe like that disconnection, that gap is getting wider and wider. Yep. And maybe there are some guys who are motherfucking you for not being there. Yep. And you're just, you're not supported. You're feeling
management's on you, hey, what's going on? And guys life's going on without you. As much as you think, fucking I'm a big part of this. Life's going on. They're going to play in Chicago and then they're going to New York and I'm sitting there bag skating. So life out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah.
And so you definitely start to feel like, man, like if I do come back, where do I fit in? And those, when you're injured, it's hard for, and our experience, you and I, of me being unhealthy in a certain part of our relationship, of you checking up on me all the time. You get tired of asking, and I get tired of telling you. And the same thing happens when you're injured. Guys get tired of asking you, how you feeling today? How you feeling today?
Oh,
fucking ask me, because it's like...
It's automatic. It's like you don't like, and
they're just trying to be nice.
There's no energy between... It's just an exchange.
It's just an exchange. It's not, hey man, how you feeling? The other thing, dude, is in my career, and I'm sure we'll get into it, it's like, I never went into the rink knowing I got to go fight this guy tonight, or I got to, put on my warrior face and walk in the rink in the morning and one of my teammates say, how you doing? Excuse me. And me say, I'm kind of sad today. I'm feeling kind of vulnerable today. How would that look to my teammates who are looking at me to go out and fight that guy, or go out and be, one of the captains of the team to go lead the charge, for a guy to come in and having a coffee in the morning say to me, hey man, how you doing? I'm sad today. It's just not acceptable. I just would never do it. I'd never.
That would go around the locker room. You'd be off the team in no time.
Like, you pussy.
Yep.
And that's not to fault them. That's the cult. That's the vibe.
The warrior mentality, right? And so what happens, right? So I'm so glad you brought that up. What happens when the game's over, right? Whether it's while you're still playing and you're away from that atmosphere, or you're retired and you're moving on in your career. Unfortunately, so many of us carry that warrior mentality, that armored up. I fucking got this. Never I'm never going to let them see me sweat.
Yep.
And what happens? We become disconnected to our loved ones and to our mission. And whatever it is, it's that the thing that got you, that really served you.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
It got you to the pinnacle.
It got me. My ego served me well.
Being able to fucking bury those emotions and just grind it, and coach motherfucking you. You got it? Okay, fuck you, but I'm going to go out there and play.
Yeah. Fuck
all
me,
that
watch
stuff.
This. Right? Yeah. But the real world is not, how you doing today? Fuck you, I'm going to go show you how I'm doing. I'm going to go shovel everyone's sidewalks, man. It's like, how you feeling? Oh, I don't know. It's cold outside. I'm kind of, depressed here today, or I'm thinking about whatever it is. It's like, you can never really truly be, I don't think, authentic in that space of being at an arena. Maybe if you're my teammate and we're having dinner one night and I say, I don't know, things aren't great with my wife, or whatever the case may be, but I never felt like I could do that.
No,
I just never did.
And it's fine. It's like, you're there. It's a sport. you're doing battle with another team, whatever. Like it makes sense to throw on that whole
the armor,
the persona, right? The armor. It's just that we never really know how to or when to take it off. And I mean, it's you and I've talked about it a lot. Our own story. Peyton and I, who if you look, we're looking on the outside, had a great relationship, but we were so disconnected and really close to going our separate ways.
Yeah. Which is crazy to me because my perception was, I wish I had that marriage. I wish I was such a great parent that I was like Cal or Peyton. Yeah. Right. But yet when you told me that, or when I, talked to you about it, I'm like,
and that's it.
Floored me.
It's like, and so I'm feeling disconnected. I'm reading your energy, other people like, oh, you're such a great dad, husband, whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm a fucking fraud.
Yeah.
Like I am disconnected here. I don't know why. Now, I've done the work over the last couple of years to understand that it was this armoring, right? And not understanding that I have to, like my wife, she wants me to be the rock, but she also wants to know the real me. The real me is vulnerable.
If you got vulnerable and cried in front, like that's connection. It's not like, how you doing? I'm doing good, babe.
Yeah. And how many times have you said that?
All the time.
To protect that ego. Like, I've still got this. I'm still the man of the house. I can protect us. It's like,
I'm going to yell at my kids now and I'm going to show everyone.
Yeah, I'm the alpha.
I'm the man in this house. And everyone's looking at me like, dude,
who is this fucking guy?
Who are you?
Yeah.
How can you be so kind in some situations and then some be like, dude, I didn't clean up my dishes. Why are you yelling, bro?
Well, and she'd see me, right? She'd see me connect with other people and be really generous.
Friends.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's like, seriously? And it's like, and she said it when we were in at Burning Man this summer when we had this really beautifully healing moment. And her whole everything was about the home and all the things were nice and she was grateful for that. But all she ever wanted was me.
Yeah.
Like, and what that actually means.
Yeah.
And like to be real, and I've talked about this before, but to be released from that role that I thought I had to play of like providing all these things.
It was for me, it was important that I thought it was important that people see me as the provider and as the man and you got this. When I stripped some of that away and I look back and I think of some of the conversations I had in past relationships, and especially now, it's like, dude, I don't care what car you're driving. I don't care. But if you want to get honest, that means so much more to me than, you could get honest at Burning Man or wherever, the retreats you go on. You can do it right in your own home. But, when you're not, when for me, it wasn't, I couldn't get vulnerable enough to like someone see me as like being weak. Perceiving me as weak.
Yeah.
And I think it comes back to, you said, which was nice of you to say about being kind. It's like, I want to be kind, but don't think I'm weak.
Yeah.
Even though all I just wanted was, and again, in some of our talks, it's like, all I really wanted was a hug sometimes, right? Not a, you got this.
Yeah.
And it's
like, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Don't worry, dude. And we had that, you gave me, and I know we'll talk about that, but it's like when people just say, just put all the, put your ego away, put it all away. Like, how are you doing? Really? Like, I'm fucking sad. My dad passed away and I'm not happy in this. And I'm just hurt. I don't know how to deal with this,
I think that's a perfect kind of segue into like what that, it starts out as a couple of painkillers to treat the wrist, right? And then all of a sudden the career ends, right? And some things are starting to snowball. And this is, instead of being able to really dig into what was going on, probably just, I think we talked about it earlier, like just not even aware.
That
He's
wasn't
just
aware.
completely
Exactly.
unconscious
Yes.
of what was going on
Totally.
actually. But knowing something's not right, and then it's like the numbing, it becomes a great numbing mechanism.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I have to make a decision to what my career looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to keep kind of swimming upstream here? Or are you going to kind of face reality and see, even if you came back and I wasn't 100%, they might send me to the minors, but then my career would really not end the way either way. I was at a crossroads where it's not ending the way I wanted to. Like
not even
fucking close. And that was like, oh my God. Okay. So what's the best way for me? How's this going to look? Okay. Well, I moved to California because I wanted to be close to my kids. And so if I just have this, if I keep fighting it and I'm on the road and I'm doing this, I'm taking time away I'm just prolonging the inevitable, basically. And so the decision came, I'm gonna have this surgery where they're gonna put a rod and screws in my hand, and I'm gonna be immobile in my hand, and there goes my career. But I'll be able to live a little bit of a life. My quality of life won't be hurt too bad. And I'm already on this cycle of my career ending. And I'm on some painkillers, and people are making excuses for me. Oh, it's, you had a great career. I know you must be in a lot of pain, your surgeries. So it was easy to excuse my behavior to myself. Yeah, dude, you just, and fuck, you had a good career. Like, you deserve this. Mm-hmm. You deserve it. And the doctors are writing you scripts, and until they weren't, and then I'm finding them on the street. But I could tell my story to buying drugs on the street, and they were like, sympathetic to it. And it was just, it went from me having a change in my career and a change in my identity and just a drastic change in my life, to always feeling like my ego and my will and my confidence, all these things got me to a certain point, like we said, and now I could just do I could quit stuff when I wanted, I never gave myself, it was always an excuse that my hand hurt and this, whatever. So I never really gave myself a chance to quit it. What I did was I kept making excuses and saying, I'll quit when I want.
Yeah.
I don't have coaches to listen to now. I still got 2 years of making good money.
Mm-hmm.
I'll quit when I want. I've always just done what I wanted.
One thing I think is important to unpack for the listener, right? Because I think we all have our ideas about what it may feel like, or maybe we haven't even really considered it. I think I'm a little bit more sensitive to it because where we spend our time in the summer, I've seen other guys in the NHL, their careers coming to an end, and I've seen that transition. And so it's maybe a little bit more personal for me because, a lot of you guys are my brothers, and so I've seen it. But paint a picture maybe for the listener of what it actually feels like. You've spent, let's just call it for argument's sake, your entire life on a team.
Mm-hmm.
Every single year you've been on a team. One day, right, there's no team left. Mm-hmm. Like even if you go out on top, Tom Brady, Super Bowls, MVP, all that, there's no locker room to go to when the season starts. Mm-hmm. What does that feel like? Did you, well, before you answer that, did it ever cross your mind that one day I'm going to wake up and I'm not going to have a place to go to where I am a part of a team? Or is that just something that, like, holy fuck, it just happened?
When you wish for something, and it comes true and it isn't what you wanted. You know what I mean? It's like when I quit, when my career was over, I was always kind of looking forward to that moment.
I sensed that too when we were training together, and it was just hard. And
it was like,
you're like, you know what? It's just, I like the money and all that, but you weren't the kid who was 22 and was like, we're trying to win a cup.
It was hard for me. I wasn't on a team that was going to win a cup towards the end of my career. So that wasn't like, I'm going to go here and we're going to win a cup. It was more like, okay, I got a couple more years left. I'm going to make some more money and I'm going to just ride this out. So the grind was getting real, and the grind was my whole life. So you said it, it's literally one day. There's no more team meetings. There's no more curfews on the road. There's no more, and I thought I couldn't wait for that. I can't wait to have, not this coach yelling at me or the butterflies in my stomach before I play because I might have to fight somebody or I got to show up. I'm a little nervous for this game because we're playing against a great team tonight. Whatever. I was like, I can't wait till that's over. Right?
I want people to think about that for a second because what you just said, right? The butterflies, right? Like, I don't know what it's like to know the next day I'm going to have to fight some mean son of a bitch and to have those nerves, right? And so before it's all over, you can't wait to not feel that again, right? But what you're talking about is in feeling that you felt alive. You were it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Like that it was because you were going to go fight a Georgie Peros or something like that. It was that you were alive. And then when all that, because all of that is taken away.
Yeah.
Right? All that structure too, what you were talking about, the team meetings, the curfew, the meals,
curfews,
the off-season training, which sucks.
Totally.
As nice as I tried to be, but like all that stuff, it sucks, but it's structure.
Bro, everything's planned out. The bus where you land, you're on a bus, you play the game at, you're dressed by 10:30, our bus leaves like you're on a schedule from the time training camp to, the first day to the time you lose out in the playoffs. You're on a schedule that is relentless, and then your summers, you go for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on however long your summer is. If you play longer into the summer and you're part of a championship team, your summer's shorter.
Sure.
So maybe you don't take off, or maybe you take off longer. I don't know. I was always on a team that we kind of lost out early. So you take 2 or 3 weeks off, but you're not really going out and just killing yourself for 2 weeks, drinking it and doing all that, because it's too hard even for 2 weeks off to catch up to what other guys are doing in the summer. So your schedule, working out with you in the summers when we're up in Idaho and other guys who played, it's like, hey, 8:00, be at the bunker. We're working out. It's like July 9th, be at the bunker at 9:00. And so we still had some semblance of a structure, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea was that I got to be in ready to go when I go to my team, and then I'm in the real structure. So you're never really just like decompressed. Ever, really.
Until that one day.
Until the one day. And, I know we're talking a lot about my career, but the other thing that happened in my career was when I got the chance, I was a big kid, I was a tough kid. When I got to the NHL, and we're talking about Georgie Peros or Bob Probert, I wasn't that tough. So I had to try to be tough enough, or at least fake being tough enough, and get some room and try to evolve my game. And I had a coach who believed in me, and the evolution was on. But that feeling for me of like when I was younger, of like having to go fight this guy, was so overwhelming for me that it was like, well, I got to be a better player because I don't want to fight George Peros tonight. He's going to kill me. And I don't want to get embarrassed. And then I don't want to not have a job because I'm getting beat up by the toughest guys in the, So the evolution for me was like, okay, I'm going to be tough when I need to be tough, but let's see if I can hone my skills and stick around, because tough only gets you so far. Mm-hmm. And I knew that wasn't my road, which is the butterflies and the, all those. And then it stops and the music stops. And, my GM said, okay, you're having the surgery, you're good. You need me to come to the rink? No, man, you're done. Okay. And so, what is that? Idle hands is the devil's workshop, or whatever the saying is. It's like, dude, now all of a sudden, and I still had a couple years left on my contract, so I'm making the money. So my lifestyle didn't necessarily change monetarily. It just all these things, all these commitments changed. And now I don't have any commitments. And I don't have anyone telling me where to be or what to do, or, having to be accountable and all that kind of stuff. Now I had an excuse as well. I went out in an injury. So yeah, I can take these painkillers. I don't have to have, I can take as many as I want because I don't have to go skate tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, the progression into my addiction was that I felt like I deserved to let off some steam at the end of my career. It wasn't necessarily hurting me in my pocketbook yet because I wasn't not making money yet. So the progression was just a slow, kind of easy burn. And again, it came down to me saying, I'll stop. I'll get a job when I want. I'll start the next chapter of my life when I want. I'll quit, doing this when I want.
Because you've always been able to rely on that will, that inner will, exactly. Right? To be able to dictate whatever you do it on your terms.
Yep, totally. And again, that served me well. Mm-hmm. But now this is life. This is reality now. It's not in the bubble of professional sports. This is like, now I'm moving into life. And with no skills, with no real life skills other than, traveling a bit, making a bit of money, the pomp that came with it, but no real like connections to people. That's the other thing. You're on a team, people are coming, going, you're not like really opening up to people. Our friendship, yours and I would say, started, I needed to have friends away from the game, people that I could just be myself with,
mm-hmm.
And talk about things other than hockey all the time, because that wasn't, it was me, but a lot of people who see me as a hockey player always wanted to talk about hockey. And
mm-hmm.
that got old. I didn't love doing that. I wanted to be a person, right? I wanted to be Sheldon Souray, the person, but that's not what it's not what they're watching on TV. They don't want to hear your,
they want war stories.
They want to hear stories. Tell them about this and
up on that mantle.
Yeah.
It's, it's interesting too, because when I'm hearing you tell the story, right, so much of this comes down to like what's going on up here, the rationalization. I can stop when I want. I deserve this. It's this incessant like the monkey mind that plays the tricks on us, and we never really set. And the only time you really get the help or find the truth of what's going on is when you settle into like back into that instinct, that intuition, like, is that really true that I can stop when I want, or that I deserve? Do I really deserve to be fucked up on painkillers all the time? Like again, when we stay up here, it's like, oh yeah, because I had a hard career, my wrist hurts. But when we go to that inner knowing, it's like, yeah, no, it's not okay. But when you're functioning, and you were functioning for a while,
yeah.
Now,
for a while.
And when you stop functioning, and you talked about this when we were off camera, but you still felt like you were functioning, that you were kind of fooling everybody.
Yeah.
I chuckle about it now. It wasn't funny back then because it was hard to, we had I guess 3 different times when either with JJ and I, or individually, just you and I, and JJ's a dear friend of ours, JJ Dudum, where it's like, okay, I know something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're not yourself. You look like you're dying. You're pale.
Yep.
You're slurring your speech right now.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and you're not drinking. I wasn't drinking.
Yeah. And it's like all these, like,
yeah.
And yet still, right? You're like, no, I'm good. No,
Got it. Yeah.
I got it.
Don't
I got
worry.
it handled.
Yep. It's hard to be rational when you're that irrational, right? When things are so bad and they got bad. They got really bad for me. It didn't take long. I didn't need a lifelong of addiction to see how that affected, I mean, I died, I died, and there was plenty of times where I should have died and not woken up. So I consider myself one of the lucky ones, but relapse is also a part of my story. I didn't get it the first time. It wasn't like the first time again was I went to treatment. I got clean.
At this point, how many were you taking? Because I think it's remarkable. I think people need to understand this. It wasn't like Shell was going from 1 or 2 a day to 6 in a day.
Yeah.
Again, we would be playing golf. We'd be on the 3rd hole, and I'd see you go to your golf bag and pull out this large Advil-sized container.
Costco container.
Yeah, and just shovel a bunch of yellow pills in your hand and throw them in your mouth and start chewing them. And I was like, I've done Norcos before. Like, I've had one, and it's like,
you're good.
Chilled me out for hours.
Yeah, if you take them the way a doctor prescribes,
what's going? Are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, no, I'm fine, Daddy. I'm good.
Yeah.
Just the wrist and
everything. Yeah, dude, because you've walked with me from seeing me play and being healthy to where I was severely, unhealthy. You've been with me through that whole journey. So when I tell people the amounts of drugs that I was taking to function, like it wasn't work. I wasn't trying to get high anymore at the end of it. It was just so I wasn't getting sick, just so I could go to dinner, just so I could get out of the house and fake my way through. How you doing? Good. No, you're not. Look at you. Otherwise I'd just be in bed sick all the time. Right. And so you seen that story right there is when I tell people how much, and it's not a war story, I'm in a program right now where it's about sobriety and, it's not about telling your war stories. But I can say, and I will say that when I went into treatment the first time and I told the doctor how many pills I was taking, he asked me 4 or 5 times to tell him the truth, and that's the only way I'd get out. And when I went into treatment the first time, I had a pill bottle like that was full of pills, all different kind of pills, different kind of painkillers. And when I slammed it on the desk and I said, I'm here. I'm ready to get clean, right? And they go through all the pills and they see, and he came back in and he goes, dude, what are all the pills? And I said, and he goes, how long is that for? I go, I brought that bottle to get me through today. And if I wasn't going to check myself in today to last me for a couple of days till I could find something, he goes, you would do that? I said, I would do that whole bottle in a couple of days. So I was, no one would believe how much I was taking when I even went to treatment and told them. You've seen it.
Yeah.
I seen it. The amounts were insane. The amount of money I spent on the lengths I would go through to get them.
Yeah. What would you, how can you buy as many as you would need to last you for, I know you'd be flying back to LA.
Yeah. Cause they couldn't ship,
Yeah.
I would buy 4,000 or 5,000 pills at a time, and I'd be carrying a lot of cash with me to do it. And, my drug dealer was my best friend, and, it started, if we just take it back a little bit. So, I finished my career and I'm taking them as prescribed, but now they're starting to make me feel pretty good. And they're starting to make me disconnect a little bit from the hockey thing and the questions and the relationship, all the things. They're just kind of feeling good.
Put a nice layer over everything to make it manageable.
Just managing, I didn't really have to deal with the reality of losing my career and all that kind of stuff. And so but then for taking them as prescribed, I'm a big guy. I need a couple more. And then a couple more than that were making me feel better than a couple more, a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I got on, right? And I think I told you I would count some out and I'd get to a point where if I get to this many, I'm quitting. And I'd be at that many in a week. And I'd be like, well, if I get to this, I'm really, and it just, kept going
kept moving the
until
goalposts.
I'm carrying tens of thousands of dollars around with me to find pills, and it just got so bad so quickly. Again, some people it's a progression of years, and some, myself, was, I love the way they made me feel until they didn't make me feel like that anymore. And so I was chasing that to try to get to where I needed to feel, where I thought I needed to feel. And away we went. And so because you'd seen me, that it was so concerning for you guys and for myself, but not really for myself. I knew, that, again, you said there's a voice inside of me that is ultimately the voice that tells me, it's my voice of reason inside.
Mm-hmm.
It was telling me what I'm doing is not right. My morals were getting skewed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lie. I don't want to not show up for people. I don't want to do these things, but my morals were so skewed at this point that, it's hard to listen to the voice of like, you need to get some help. So yeah, I will, but not today.
Yeah.
And that was the ride I was on. That was the nosedive from hell.
So you went the first time to rehab to get some help.
Yeah, I went to treatment in early 2017. What had happened in my life was my dad passed away in 2016. So my career ends 2013 is when I had surgery. Okay. In that time, I had mentioned that I was making some money on my contract still. So I moved from LA to Las Vegas to save on some taxes. And I was, doing some things that I didn't love, but I was following a money thing and whatever. It leads us to, I'm in Vegas and I'm in a unhealthy relationship. I wasn't happy with my own life.
Right.
First and foremost, my own life. I wasn't happy in the relationship I was in. So I was drowning that, I was masking that.
Yep.
Obviously my partner knew that there was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I got it under control. It was never like just, let's figure this out. It was always, I got it. Some stuff happened in my personal life there where we were on a reality show, right? And we had this marriage for TV, which we were engaged. I was engaged and I was happily engaged. And then, we got on this reality show, or my partner did, and they had, I'm in an addiction, I'm flying through it. And my partner says, we're going to get this reality show wants to have a wedding for you guys, which, you were there and you're part of.
And it was an amazing wedding.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
But, it was all for a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't from here. It wasn't authentic, and I really.
And to be fair, that's where you both were at that point. You thought, you both, I feel like, got caught up in that, and not through any malicious intent or any of that.
No.
It was just.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I don't think, spiteful or we're going to do that. It was, I got on this wave, and I think my partner did too, and she had other priorities in her life at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And this was important to her for the show, and I just went along with it.
Yeah,
I just went along with it,
supporting her, which was admirable.
Yeah, I mean, it. But it wasn't me. I wasn't happy, and I felt like a complete fraud. And so I have this made-for-TV marriage where my best friends are at, and everyone's telling me congratulations.
Yeah,
and I was so high at my own wedding, dreading. I was playing golf in the morning with you and some other guys, and I was just I couldn't believe that I was at this point in my life that this was actually going to happen. And that's not to say there wasn't love between us and all that kind of stuff. What I'm saying is that if I was in the proper frame of mind, I never would have let it get that far. So that was in early 2016. and I'm just feeding the beast. I'm my addiction's getting worse. And on Father's Day in 2016, I lost my dad. I got a call that, my dad had passed away and he'd had a stroke. And that was the first time in my life that I dealt with loss, like really significant loss. And, well, I know a way I can not think about that, right? Is I'm just going to get deeper into this addiction. And not only that, is I was taking so many pills at the time that I needed to get on a different kind of pill. Like I needed not just painkillers, but I had to get on Xanax. So I need to sleep now, right? So now, and I was so ignorant. I didn't know how bad all this stuff was. I knew it was bad what I was doing, but I didn't know the interactions of drugs and stuff. I was just, again, I got it. I'll figure it out when I need to figure it out. And that changed my whole. When I started mixing, Xanax with the painkillers in June of 2016, I turned 40. I remember you were at my 40th birthday party.
I remember, I don't know if you remember this.
That was in July.
You, that night, as we were all going home, you were driving your golf cart like fucking asshole, and you were threatening me.
And, oh my God.
I know, right? And it's your like boys from Montreal were there, and we're like, how do we, it's like, I'd never seen you like that. I'm like, he's not right.
Yeah.
But it's like, whatever. He has some drinks. This is his party.
Blowing off some steam. Again, you guys are making excuses for me. My dad had passed away. It seemed not so crazy for the situation, right? I'm 40. I'm having, so the easy thing for you guys to be like, dude, you were fucked up last night.
That's it. Yeah.
And you got it? Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And just keep going on my own way. Right. And that was my 40th birthday, July 2016. And I went into treatment in January, and so in that 6 or 7 months where I had been managing, right? Yep. Where I had been functioning, I guess, is what I thought was functioning. To January, it got so extreme and so bad. So I went to treatment. I knew that I had a talk with my partner at the time, and she was like, she caught me with a bunch of pills for the umpteenth time and said, "What's up?" And I knew at that point I wanted to get clean. I was tired of feeling shitty. And so I picked up the phone and I called the NHLPA, a couple doctors who run the substance abuse program. And they were surprised as hell, I think, to hear from me, because I'd always been a, line tower, trying to be a role model for everything. And no questions asked, they had me in treatment in a couple days. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so
you said you've been very, very clear that they were amazing, and the support that they've
my personal, everyone has their own thing. My personal experience with the NHLPA doctors is they have been amazing. There was no questions asked. There was no judgments. I need help. We're going to get you the help. Get there, and you're going to have to do the work, but we're going to get you there. Now, I'd been retired for a couple of years as well, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like they didn't owe me anything. They didn't, it's not like I was a current player who was playing for a team and said, I got a problem. I want to get this so I can be back next year. It was like I was out of sight, out of mind for a couple of years. And there was no questions asked. And they put me in treatment. And that was my first kick at it, right? I wanted to get clean. And so I did. I went to treatment and got clean, did the detox, went through hell. And, after I started feeling better, which was a week or 2 weeks, when I got over the physical, the physical symptoms, mm-hmm. I called the doctor. I'm good to go. Well, you're supposed to be in 30 days. I'm good. I got it. I got it all. And I went out. I was completely, again, ignorant to the process and what it takes. It doesn't take 30 days to just unpack your life. And, it's
and
not,
again, at this point, you were taking upwards of 200 painkillers. Is that right?
I was taking a couple hundred a day. And we know that because of how many I was taking. One day I had a handful of pills, and I said, that looks like a bigger handful than normal. And I counted them out, and there was 63 in there. And I remember just knocking off 13. So I took 50 at a time. And I know some people will believe it, some won't. But as you see you've seen it. And as I guess we talk about a couple other things in my recovery, it's crazy. But I said, okay, well, at 50, and that's a nice steady number. But that wasn't getting me. It would give me a little buzz for a little bit.
Yep.
But it was just managing me for 2 or 3 hours until I would start getting withdrawal symptoms in 2 or 3 hours. And that's when I kind of introduced the Xanax and stuff to make those to at least sleep a little longer so I wouldn't feel the withdrawals so quickly. And so I thought I was doing myself a favor in managing, my drug use, and I was just lighting a fire with gasoline.
It becomes absurd
right?
At a certain point. And I know you were taking Xanax. I don't know if anyone's ever taken one. I remember I had taken a quarter of a bar when we were in Las Vegas because I just wanted to go to bed, and that knocked me out really good.
Yeah.
For a while. And I think you said you were taking 5 or 6 by the end?
Well, I remember one night that I again counted out, and I had 4 full bars of Xanax. And, I had taken those after not taking less painkillers, maybe just taking them less of a period of time, right? So instead of every 3 hours, it was maybe 5 hours. And taking that many would, at some points there was like, I'm going to take these tonight, and if I don't wake up, it's okay. I feel so shitty with my life that if I don't wake up, it's okay. Now I look back on that and I think of all the how crazy that is, and how much I have to live for, and oh my God, how that's how I would have left.
Well, it's crazy, but it's not. It's
it's not crazy.
Like it's like if anyone's just like listening to what you're saying, it's like these things unforeseen, right? I mean, you don't anticipate what the end of the career is going to look like, and then you stack a few things in there, like an injury. Then you lose your dad. There's this gaping hole that you're trying to fill, and it's unfillable, but you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. And it's like, what on the outside you have everything to live for, right?
Everything.
But like, and what you're feeling.
I lost my dad. I'm not the only person in the world who's ever lost a parent. At that time, and I look back on things, I felt like things were just happening to me. Like, oh my God, my career got taken away, and like I was the only person who ever. Meanwhile, I get a 2-year severance of getting paid. Right? My dad passed. Oh my God, how can that happen to me? Other things that was like, just my luck. When I've always felt like God's had a crush on me because he's from where I'm from, and to play in the NHL, have the career I've had. Healthy kid, everything is. It shouldn't have happened. It's like I won the lottery, and to be ungrateful for that, for the time that I was, is like, it's embarrassing, but it just shows me how strong addiction can be, how messed up in our own thinking we can get, and it got so dark for me that I just, if I wouldn't have woke up, it feels like it would have been easier for me. Now, I'll go back to saying I don't like being in trouble. I'm too much of a pussy to ever kill myself. I wouldn't take I was too afraid of like consequences. I had a healthy respect for authority. So I wasn't trying to kill myself. It was just, I was so sick that it was okay if.
Well, it's so, again, like when you have this sense of good fortune or great fortune, right? You said you always felt like God had a crush on you. Like, it really raises the stakes, right? Look at all the great things that have happened to me, and then look at me now, and then it becomes this gnarly cycle, right? That you go down, you're like, I've been given all this and I'm fucking it all up. And so it just becomes worse and worse. Yeah. And you just like like you used the word ungrateful. Yeah. It wasn't ungrateful. You were in so much pain, right? And it's embarrassing. No, it's not embarrassing. It's like, it's sad that happens. It happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think where you've come to now is like this just self-forgiveness for all of that, because it wasn't your intention.
It wasn't.
You were doing the best you could, but because you felt like you've been given so much and you were pissing it all away and you felt like a fraud, and like all these things just stack on one another, right? And it's like, what happens? I need to get further and further away from reality because it's so fucking painful that I need more pills. And then I need these other pills to make these other pills last longer, and this and that. And it's I mean, it's pretty clear why it happens, and it's so unintentional.
It is, it's, again, it goes back to my ego and to my very naive way of thinking that I could handle it. I got this on my own. And what do I have on my own? Look, this on my own got me to this point of despair and darkness. That's where that's where not being authentic in a relationship or not talking to my friends. If I would have came to you at any point when I lost my dad and said, Cal, I want to talk to you, and cried on your shoulder, I know you never would have thought less of me. It's just I couldn't bring myself to do that, that's the power of addiction. That's the power of where I was in my life at that point, where it's like I feel like I'm such a phony and such a fraud because I'm doing all this other stuff saying I'm not, that, if I did say, Cal, I need to talk to you, and cried, like, I felt like maybe you think I was a fraud because you don't ever see me as, that you see me as this tough guy. What's he doing crying? That's not, looking back on it, hindsight's 2020, and after doing some work, it's like, dude, you would have, and you did do everything, you could. I mean, what can you do? You can't walk my path for me, but you certainly, I will say one thing about you, and that's that when I was going through my worst part of it, so I'd done that one treatment, and then I relapsed. I said relapse, a part of my story. When I relapsed hard, very hard. And you were the one person in my whole life who you flew up from your family, from what you were doing. You just moved your house here in Idaho to go back home for the summer. And I think I was playing golf with some guys.
Some friends of ours.
And they had called you and said, dude, your boy's not good.
That's exactly what they said.
And you flew back up here and said, I go, what are you coming up for? I actually thought I was out of the woods where I didn't have to put on this.
Yeah.
Right? Remember, I almost tried to bail on you that night to not go to that dinner with you, even after you flew in from Austin specifically to try to help me. And I'll never forget that. Right? That's something that shows me what kind of person you are. And you seen that I was hurting, and you asked, dude, I remember you asked me 3 or 4 times, probably, like, dude, how can we help you? How can our group of friends help you? And it was always, just one excuse after the other. And when you came up that time, and I seen the extent you went through to try to help me, I went to treatment, I think maybe a few days after that. That was like, I'd seen my mom within a space of time there.
Yeah, that was like, really important.
She said, what's up? And I told her, and I'd seen you. And those two things, seeing that I had one of my closest friends in the world care that much about me, and my mom care that much about me, and it combined with how bad I was feeling and how sad I was. And again, I was a little embarrassed about relapsing and whatever. There's a lot of things. I knew when we had our conversation I was going to go get help, and I think I told you that. I didn't tell you the whole truth. I danced around a little bit. I got a brain injury. I got that, but I'm going to go see a doctor. Right.
That's right.
I gave you little truths.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
I still didn't even have it in me to be like,
which makes total sense. And what's and just to paint a picture of where your head was at that point, right? Like, so I get the phone call from our close friend, Chris Friedrich, and that's exactly what he says. Your boy's not good. We played golf today. He could barely put the tee in the ground. He was going to play 18.
Mm-hmm.
He finished 9.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 9 holes, he probably actually finished 3 or 4 of them. And it was all the things, right? And so here I am at dinner with you, and I said, I didn't know, and it's number 3 for me to kind of bring this up to you.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll just get the cards on the table right now. I said, I just talked to our good friend. And I don't think I mentioned it until finally at the end. I'm like, listen, I fucking talked to Friedrich.
Well, you asked, I do remember this. I tried to bail on you that night, right? Because I didn't actually want to have to be confronted with how bad things were for me. And you asked me who I played with. And I said, well, Chris Friedrich and, a couple other guys. And you go, who else? And I couldn't remember the 4th guy. Mm-hmm. And you said, Shell, you mean to tell me you played golf with these guys yesterday and you don't remember who you played with? And that by you saying, and you said it gently, you weren't like, you motherfucker. You were, you weren't overly happy with me, but you said it in a way that it was like, yeah, that's
and that,
that's
yeah,
true,
I think that's where I was at that point where I'm just like, I was trying to appeal to the big heart, and I'm just like, listen, like this is like these are the reports that I'm getting.
Yeah.
Okay. And you try to say, look, I was only playing 9 holes. and I'm like, this is just not true.
Right. Yeah. I was trying to bluff my way through it.
And I'm like,
these are friends of ours. We have like to make some wagers on the golf course, right, and have fun. And our one friend, Brett Platt, who we had a game with, I think it was on the 5th tee, he came up. He said, "I'm going to let you out of our game. I can tell you're not feeling well. This and that." I said, "Yeah, I didn't sleep very good." Bullshitting again, right? Just so embarrassing. And after 9, I just had to say, "Guys, I'm not feeling great, and whatever, I owe you." But they let me. It was so bad that they guys who love money let me off the hook. They're like, "Dude, just."
Well, and that actually is funny you bring up Brent's name. I remember a time, this is another indication to me that you were in a bad place. I'd never really come close to shooting par on the golf course. And I'm playing with, it's you and I versus Uncle Bob Spoleto and Brent Platt.
Mm-hmm.
And we absolutely rinsed them.
Yeah.
And I've got to make like an 8-footer on 18 to shoot par.
Yep.
Like I've never come close. I roll it in after birdieing on 17. And I'm like so excited. Everyone's giving me the love. And Brent and Uncle Bob just lost a bunch of money. They couldn't have been more happy to give it to me. I'm like, Daddy, let's go to the tree bar. The tree bar is where we go after we play golf, have a couple of drinks, whatever. We go over to the tree bar and you're like, Daddy, I'm going to go home. I'm just like, I just fucking shut par. And it's like
I couldn't even,
you couldn't
celebrate in your victory.
But it didn't even occur to you that you like, thing to do is like, you were, and it's like, oh man, like Shell's in a bad place.
There was nothing about my life that was do the right thing.
Right.
There was nothing. And you being one of my closest friends to not be happy. If I couldn't be happy for myself, which is a lot of my career going back to, right? At least be happy for other guys.
But that's
I couldn't even like.
That is, I think what I've come to, and it's not anything earth shattering. I think for a lot of people listening, it's that until you can really be happy for yourself and really love yourself, you can't extend it to others. You're just full of shit and you feel it when it's coming out of your mouth. When you're not feeling good about yourself and you're giving someone else a stroke job, it feels your mouth even cringes as it's coming out, right?
Yeah.
But and that's the point. It's like you felt so shitty about yourself that it's just words coming out if you're doing it, if you're kind of extending that to someone else. And
you're right. And it was also a physical thing, right? That people would have to see me and they might not see me like they did this summer before, being in shape. And it was the whole thing, dude. It was just so,
Oh, you were scarce. You would play golf and gone.
Yeah.
And I obviously, it makes perfect sense why.
Yeah.
But I also think an interesting part of your story is what your experience was this time around with rehab and why it was different and what you experienced.
Yeah, this is what I like talking about the most, right? There's what happened to me and what it was like, right? And what it's like now. And that's where the magic is. And I knew before I went into treatment, that was my second go around in 9 months, right? And I went into treatment. I had a terrible experience in treatment when I got to treatment the second time. I went into a very bad withdrawal and psychosis, and I was in the ICU for 9 days, in the hospital for 16. I don't remember. Detox wasn't bad for me there because I don't remember any of it. I was in, delirium. I mean, it was, you see those guys on the street who've obviously had too much drugs and they're yelling and whatever at themselves. Well, that was me in a hospital bed. And to the point where, I had, I'd flatlined, and I had caught pneumonia in there. I was just in such bad shape, dude. And it's, again, I look back and it's like God wanted me to be here for a different reason. I shouldn't have. There's a lot of times in that early part of that wasn't recovery yet. It was like that, my experience with using and coming off of drugs, that it was so bad, and being in the hospital and all these things happening, when I kind of came to, and this is a crazy part of it. So I'm in the ICU for 9 days, I'm in the hospital for 16 days. I'm in this hospital room, and there's a whiteboard, and literally after 14 days, 15 days, I open my eyes and I look at this board, and it has my name on it. It has the date. It said October 8th or 9th, 2017. And I kind of look at it, and I look over, and this nurse sitting in a chair right over there. And I look and I go, she goes, "Are you okay?" And so during this time that I was in there, obviously I'm having these episodes, right? Where I think it's real life, all this stuff's happening, but it's not. And so I had to have security guards at the room and stuff, because they thought I could be physically violent. So this lady kind of pops up and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I go, "Who put the date on the board?" And she goes, "You did." And I said, she goes, "The doctor did." And I said, "That's not the date." And she goes, "Yeah, it is." I thought it was 2013. During this psychosis, I had actually asked the doctors for the phone a couple times, and I'd left messages from agents saying the hospital's trying to kill me. For my ex, when I was in there, we weren't even together, and I'm like, "Hey, if I die in here, this is the story." They tried to get. It was so bad, and I just kind of came out of it one day, and what happened was I went to a treatment center. I started getting withdrawals in the treatment center, and they had to put me in an ambulance to a hospital. So when I came to in the hospital, they had to call the treatment center to see if they would even take me back in the treatment center. And I remember the guy who checked me in the treatment center, he came to look at me, and he said, "Wow, you look great." And I said, "Yeah, what'd you expect?" He goes, "I didn't expect to see you again." And it was like a bit of a shock to me, right? And he goes, "You were so bad that people don't make it out of that." And he said, I came here, the treatment center sent me here to get eyes on you to see if we would even take you back. And they did. They said, "Yeah, okay, come back." And from the moment that my feet hit the ground back in that treatment center, my life was going to be different. Something just, it was time to make some real changes.
Well, and you shared a story, before we sat down today, and I know I've heard it before, but I think it's an important part of the kind of vision, I guess, you had when you're driving the kind of the old jalopy, and you encountered this being, right? And then kind of share that experience with the listeners. I think it's important to, why you've had so much strength in this recovery.
When I was in this, psychosis and stuff, a lot of things were happening. and obviously a lot of it isn't true. A lot of it kind of is true. And some of it's real, I guess. Your mind is going crazy. But what I had seen was, I had seen that I was in a hospital bed, but I could see the basement of the hospital. And in that was a body, a shell of a body, and it was all black. And there was just this tiny heart in there beating, and almost like a cartoon heart. And it was so faintly beating, right? And I knew that was me. And I kind of I was looking down on it, and there was a lot of other things in this psychosis where, I told you there was some bad things that my friends were doing, crazy things to my kids. Like there was some bad, it was a bad trip, right? Kind of a peaceful part of it was this part where I'd seen this, I'd been looking down on myself, and, I'd seen this tiny heartbeat. And I knew I just wanted to die. In this psychosis, I was fighting to stay alive this whole time in different scenarios. This particular part of my psychosis, I knew that I seen myself down there, and the heart was just beating so faintly, and that I just wanted to die. I just wanted to be over. I wanted all this craziness in my head to be done. And for a second, I got a little relief, and I felt like I was, going up to heaven, I guess, for lack of a better word. Now, I'm not as, I was raised Catholic, right or wrong. My spirituality came from church on Christmas and Easter. That's my religion, right? And so I felt like I was going to heaven, and this voice says to me, "Not now. It's not your time." And next thing I know, I'm in this field, right? That I can, when I'm telling this story, I can feel that. And that is kind of a metaphor for my whole recovery. It's like, it's just not your time. Your time, I don't decide when my time is, right? Or else it would have been over a long time ago. If life was fair, probably the people who have cancer would be living, and I would be not here to share this story with you. But I hold that dear to my heart. And when I was in recovery and I got to a treatment center, I was talking to a psychologist, and he said, "Take me through this." And I'm talking a mile a minute. And he's like, first of all, here's the stats on what you had and the people who make it out of what you had just alive. And here's the stats of people who make it out of it without having a life. You're going to have a disability the rest of your life, a brain injury, because that's what it basically is. You got a brain injury. And here you are telling this story. He goes, "I don't have not to sound corny, but he goes, "I don't have a medical reason for it." He goes, "But I want you to remember this story and hold it dear to you, because this is real." It's not real for him, or maybe free, but it was real for me. Like, that's a real thing that happened to me. And he said, over the course of your recovery, he said, "I hope that," because at that point when I was talking to him, I was like talking, and I'm like, crying, and there was a lot of stuff going on emotionally. And he said, "Over the course of your recovery, I hope that, you keep the story near to you and dear to you, and that it's going to be a part of your recovery and of your story. And that right now it's like a lion's roar." He goes, "We want to get it down to like a kitten's purr, but it's always going to be a part of your story." And again, that I keep that in my thing to remind me of times when, I could just go out and use, or I feel sorry for things or start getting bad. It's like, dude, I'm here. Like, I shouldn't be here, and someone, whatever it was, said that we're not done with you, so you're not. And it wasn't like I just got relieved of, wow, you're healed, right? It's like, I'm not relieving you right now. It's like, I'm giving you a chance to re-navigate through life and do this a better way. And so that, to me, in sharing the story with you, is, I feel like I was at the worst of using and consequence, without killing somebody, without going to jail, without completely fucking up all my relationships in my life, which I was on my way to doing. That here's a chance to go and be you and be authentic and learn some tools to live more authentically and more patiently and more vulnerable and all those things, which, me 2-3 years ago, that's not me. That's not patient and vulnerable and a good listener. And
it's always putting on the good face. And I got it.
Faking my way through it. Fake it till you make it was kind of the motto that I was living in, where now it was like, now in recovery, it's like, well, let's get to the root of why why you felt like it needed to get that bad before you can be honest, or, be honest with myself and be honest with other people and have meaningful relationships. I'm in a relationship with an awesome woman who's in recovery and who I thank God every day for. And we have this relationship that I've never had with anybody else because we're honest and I can be vulnerable and not every day is a good day for me. Not every day is like, farting rainbows.
Yeah.
That's not how it is. I have some tough days. I celebrated 2 years sober in September and I felt like the loneliest guy in the world. I felt like my life really wasn't much different than it was when I first got sober. This is what I felt, right?
Yeah.
And that my life wasn't much different, that my dad died at 21 years, lonely, that, who cares if I went out, and just that I was having these thoughts at 2 years sober.
Yeah.
It's like, if I'm going to be miserable, I might as well be miserable doing what feels good for a second.
Yeah.
That's the disease telling me something, right? The reality is that I could share that with my girlfriend and say, I'm having these feelings, man, or my sponsor or other men or you or people who now become much more important to me. And say, today's not a great day, and manage my way through that, not fake my way through it.
Yeah.
Manage my way through that, with some open conversation and doing some work and getting a little deeper in why am I feeling shitty, and I'm not great at my I admire you for the way you navigate through your life and how transparent, authentic you are. I'm learning, right? It doesn't come natural for me to say, yeah, I'm kind of sad today, or, I'm depressed, or that bothered me, or, instead of you doing something to me and say, Cal, can we talk about that? That's not really good for me. That's not natural to me. Mine is being like, fuck off, Cal, and go home and watch TV and, tell myself that you're an asshole. But I'm learning to be like, Cal, I what did you mean when you said that? Explain that to me better so I can try to understand why. And then I can make a better decision instead of retreating and being like, oh, my feelings got hurt there. Fuck, that guy's out to get me, or she's out to get me, or, no one cares about me because they're not listening to what I'm saying, that kind of, so I'm learning those tools, and it helps me get through, it leads me to being sober today, and if I didn't have that, what would my again, I go back to being 2 years sober and being like, oh, this is shitty. I should just, I didn't say I should just, it's like, this fucking, I thought my life would be different.
Yeah, you thought it, right. I
thought I'd feel better today and I felt better almost every single day, better than I did before. Not almost every day since I've been sober. I felt better than when I went into treatment. That 2 years, this time was so important. Like, at 2 years, I feel like my life should be different. Well, it is different. My relationship with my kids are better. It's not perfect, but it's better. I'm in the best relationship and have the best partner I've ever had, more than I could, I'm overachieving. Someone who's patient and kind with me. People, my friends are proud of my journey and proud of me for, taking some responsibility in my life and in my actions, and putting my feet in front of each other and walking the walk, but authentically, not perfectly, not the way, sometimes I'd like it to look, but my relationship with my friends are better, my kids are better. So I say that to anyone who might listen to that and say, I was a 2 years sober feeling like this is all worth nothing. The reality, though, of it is, if I was out having, using, how would my relationships? I wouldn't have a girl that I absolutely love. I wouldn't have a mom who tells me she's proud of me. I wouldn't have kids who look at me and say, Dad, you look healthy and strong, and I'm proud of you, and not, weak and frail and laying in bed all day. I mean, that's the reality. It's not that I'm making $1 billion doing something else.
Yeah.
It's that I'm living a life of worth something besides being a hockey player. Like that's long past for me. Now it's like, let my feet and my actions do the talking, and do some evaluation, take some constructive criticism, take some, do some, worry about me, not whatever, not things aren't happening to me anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're happening for you.
I'm grateful for what I have. I mean, I've more than, again, people look at our lives and say, I wish I had that. And I'd look at someone else's life and go, I wish I had that.
Right.
And when now I'm in a place of like, I can be grateful for what I have, and it opens me up to receive more things that I'm grateful for. Not like, oh man, that happened and shit. Oh, now I got to deal with this. And it's just more, thank you for letting me have this experience in my life that was shitty. Mm-hmm. Thank you for letting me have some relationships that taught me some things, mm-hmm. so I can be better in this relationship. And so I have that perspective, and being in a program and having friends like you and people I can talk to and count on. It's just, I can't imagine it being the other way ever.
Yeah. Well, and I think you bring up an interesting point. I think, so many times when, like, you talk about what that experience was on the 2-year anniversary of being sober, and how it was very ho-hum, right? It's very average day. And we kind of build up this expectation of what things are supposed to feel, mm-hmm. like, and that we should be happy all the time. And it's like, that's not really how life works. Yeah. Even though we're led to believe that, we actually have to have those moments that are very ho-hum or sad, so that we can really appreciate when we feel connected.
Totally.
At that moment, you're just, maybe it was an unmet expectation of yours of this is what it's supposed to be like, and it's an unreal expectation, right? I mean, we could spend a lot of time trying to unpack that, and a couple of guys, we might get to the figure it out, but the idea is that we think, right? I have an NHL career, I make all this money, I have this life licked, I've got it figured out, I'm completely 100% fulfilled because that's what I'm supposed to do. And that's not the case.
It couldn't be further from, like, I lived a fairy tale. When I look back on it, it's like I lived this fairy tale life, right? And that is almost like not real. The private planes, the money, and now reality sets in. It's like, okay, so if you're going to be authentic, and what I goes back to like being a teammate and stuff, I was genuinely happy for other guys when they did well, right? Because it usually meant that I was going to do better. My contracts, our team did better, my contracts, that kind of thing. I can honestly say, that this is real life, and that the ups and the downs that come with it, like the downs that I've had have led me to be as grateful as I am for. As bad as my addiction took me and got me, I'm equally as grateful that I had that experience to really be here and have a clear head and be honest and authentic and again, it's not perfect, man. It's not perfect. But I know what my life looked like before. And I don't ever want it to look like that again.
When you had that, and you explained it too, you had you looked at things very much through the victim mentality of all this stuff is happening to me, right? And I think a lot of us, that resonates with us, right? And it's a very disempowering position to be in, to have things happening to you. But what you're saying now, through these things that on the surface, objectively, people would be like, I don't want to go through what you went through.
Yeah.
But these things happen for you to come out on the other side and see with clear eyes what the lessons are. And that without those things, maybe you wouldn't have the insights into who you are and how to really connect with yourself. So now that you can connect with your kids and with your loved one, Tess, and with your friends and your brothers, and to show up to sponsor someone and to be a part of different communities and different tribes in a way that's really meaningful, right? You had to really have these things happen for you. And I think that's something that for people listening, whenever you feel like something's happening to you, try to just shift it and think about, why is this happening for me? What is the lesson here? And maybe you
What's the lesson? Yeah.
Maybe you can't figure it out right then, but don't just let it be. Really try to sort through it, because I think when we look back at the most challenging times we've all had, I talked about earlier, like when my marriage was really in a rocky spot and I didn't think it was going to survive. I mean, that was a really dark time for me. It allowed me to really feel what that life of disconnection was. And as Peyton and I have really connected, so now I know the contrast of that. Now I know what that feels like.
Yeah. The good part of it.
Yeah. Like you need the contrast. It's like two sides of the same coin.
Totally.
But without it, right? And it's like when you're into addiction, you're just having this experience the whole time. You're not allowing yourself to go into the trauma, to heal the trauma.
Yeah.
You're putting armor on it, you're layering it, you're doing whatever you can to
you're trying to bury it and step on it. And it's just so unhealthy. But, again, I go back to, like, you try to tell me that you can't walk my path for me. And I see guys, I get messages and I see guys trying to get sober, or, they want to, and the heart's in the right place, much like mine. I'm like, you know what? Go to a few meetings, get a day, then get 2 days. Call me after a week, because I can't not waste my time, but I can invest my time in a bunch of different, if they don't want to do it. Much like you and JJ and George and Adam, my 4 best friends outside who've really been there for me during my journey. It's like at a certain time, you came up here and you see me and you were like, oh my God, you can't keep, like, how much are you going to keep investing in me if I can't do the simplest thing, which is even just acknowledge that I got a problem. If I can't just even acknowledge that. So I feel like that now there's when guys want to get sober, guys reach out to me and I'm glad they do. I'm glad they have that trust in me. I always say, just do a little, just go to a meeting, just do something different than you're doing. So instead of that day, having a couple drinks or a pill or whatever your vice is, just go to a meeting. And then see how you feel the day, and then call me. If you go to a meeting and you're feeling shitty, call me and we can talk. Let's talk about the reasons why it might not be a great idea to drink. And then ultimately I'll make a decision if, how that looks, and then go to a meeting another day. That's how it worked for me. I had guys who cared enough. I felt like I owed it to myself to at least try to be sober. I feel like I went through this experience of, like, death and near death and craziness in my mind to come out the other side and be like, there's something better than the way I'm living. And I mean something better than the way I was living when I was playing hockey, making money. I mean, there's a better way to live my life, a more authentic way to live my life. And so I learned that every day from guys who've done it for 10 years, guys who've done it for 7 years, or, also guys who, it helps me when I see guys who are, we have another friend now who's at the beginning stages of trying to get sober, right? And it helps me to see how hopeless or lost they feel or embarrassed they feel. That, oh my God, people know that I've admitted that and for me, that helps me because it's like, I was there. Like I feel that.
Yeah. You empathize with them.
I feel that, man. And I don't want you to, not only do I not want you to feel like that anymore and that there is a better way of life, but I don't want to ever feel like that again. I don't ever want to make a stupid decision and feel like that again,
It's so interesting too, because in them feeling that, right, and being like exposing or actually sharing what they're dealing with, it's actually a much more honest view of who they are versus the exterior that I've got this and they're kind of doing all this stuff behind the scenes, when on the surface it seems like you're holding everyone at bay, but deep down that you're full of shit and you're a fraud, and it just
such a bad feeling.
You just don't understand it at the time because you're in so much pain that you like. But again, like that's the thing that's like slowly killing you, is not being able to be honest about what's going on. But it's so painful for people, right?
It is. It's work. It's like, okay, I can get honest and vulnerable and maybe be judged for some, or I can just stay at my house and drink a beer. And, I mean, the choice is kind of easy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I've lived it. I get it. You said it earlier too. We don't know what we don't know. Like, how could I, if I didn't go through my experience, how could I get honest? How could I think that, although I knew the way I was living was wrong and I didn't like it, didn't feel good to me, I didn't know how to climb out of that. I felt like, asking for help was going to be the last thing. That was like the very last thing, because I had this armor on, but I didn't know. I didn't know how to like say sorry. My God, I can't remember saying so. I was always right.
Mm-hmm.
I was right about, and if you didn't think I was right, I was gonna tell you all the reasons why I was right.
You're pretty convincing.
Like, fuck, man. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, and it's like, again, impose your will on this conversation where it's like, you almost sound like you know what you're talking about, And so I just didn't even know where to begin, because I didn't have any skills. I didn't have any skills to say I'm sorry or be empathetic, or be forgiving. My go-to was I can take all that resentment and fucking use it somehow, gain some power from it, right? I can be so resentful that I was going to make you feel it. And I go to, treatment, and I hear this statement. It's, resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, right? And that, again, that resonated with me. It's like, I feel so bad that I want you to feel it. And when people are like, why are you so mad, dude? What's up, right? So those are all things that I'm learning, and I'm rewiring my makeup, and my natural fallback instinct is to be shit. When I played sports, it was like, act now and I'll worry about the consequences later. It's not like, okay, I'm going to go into a fight. Let me think about this. Let me weigh the good and the bad and, really calculate this. It's like, dude, I'm going to do something. I'll worry about the consequences later. And that's kind of how I was living my life. I'm going to do what I want, when I want, and I'll worry about the consequences, when it was just so selfish. And again, where did that get me? in a lot of trouble. So it's, it's a lot of years of trying to relearn things and learning from guys like you and like-minded guys like you. Like I love some of the podcasts, some of the men you become friends with, manly men that I can relate to, right? And identify with. Sometimes it's hard to maybe identify with other guys who haven't been professional athletes or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's men who are leading the charge in a lot of good ways and opening up these lines of communication to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to just talk about, do what we're doing right now. I mean, I feel like we've done this before, just we haven't had these microphones here,
That's
but
right.
It's like these are open, honest conversations that we can have. I know we had one last year around this time. It was a year of recovery, and now it's like 2 years, and I'm learning more things. And I think even our friendship is like we're getting a little deeper with things, right? A little more trust in talking about your marriage or your kids, and I get a little more trust with you and share more things, and that's powerful for me, and that's really healing for me, and I'll continue doing that because it feels good now. It doesn't feel weird or judgy.
Yeah,
it just feels good.
Well, yeah, and I think that's an important point. It's again, I think the essence of what you're talking about is this sense of tribe, right? Or again, whatever you want to call it, brotherhood, tribe, whatever. And to your point, there have been some men like, Kyle Kingsbury and Aubrey Marcus and those guys who have really, come into my life in the last couple of years and really shown me a way to show up for other men in a way that is with love, open-hearted, open-minded, challenge, right? To really challenge each other on stuff when we're full of shit. And, I've really taken those lessons that I've been learning and tried to take it back to my various groups of brothers, right? Yeah. And what I found is as I start the conversation to a man, I had a conversation with our good friend Ray Whitney last night. Ray played 20-something years in the NHL. He's got to be around my age, 47, 48. But again, has coming into this season of his life where he doesn't want to do it all himself anymore. He wants the support of others. He wants that team in a different way, not to go do combat, right? Not to go on the ice and try to win a hockey game, but to really sort through our shit that we haven't sorted through for a number of years, right? And figure out what it means to show up. It's not just having a bunch of beers together and playing golf. It's like, okay, we talked about it last night. He still has this mentality of how he really, Wiz, he was in incredible shape to play the number of years he played. He's one of the smallest guys to ever play in the NHL, and he played for 20 plus years. At a high level. And so he had to always be
in an era where everyone was big and badass.
And he was always in tremendous shape, right? He's a number of years removed from that, and he's still trying to maintain that level of conditioning. And what's it doing? It's beating him up physically.
Totally.
And so it's like, for him, it's like giving him permission, right? Inviting him to let go of that role, that identity of being this physically fit. It's actually hurting him now. While it made him money for years, right? Now it's actually debilitating him physically. And so it's
behavior though that has to be unlearned. I'm the same way.
You got to unlock it. Yeah.
It's like when I go into the gym, and you know this because you and I were training until you got to a level of training that I couldn't keep up with. I go into a gym and think that I'm training to come back for training camp next, and I get so sore that I don't work out for 3 days. And I get so beat down that I'm like, oh God, I got to go to the gym and it's going to be hard today. So if I work out, I was doing this, it's a little different now, but if I'd work out 2 times a week, I'd work out super hard and think that, okay, but I was hurting myself. Where now it's like, well, and I used to also say, I need to go to the gym today. I need to do this. No, it'll make you feel better. But if you don't go to the gym today, it's okay. You're not going to play in the NHL anymore, right? So I did that with my training. It's like I like to go to the gym today, and I might go to a Soul Cycle class instead of doing sprints on the treadmill. Like I'm not. First of all, I'm not. I got enough. I'm vain enough to still want to get in the gym and right and like
you want to look good.
Maintain a level of fitness, and it's a part of my recovery. That's the honest truth. It's for me, it's mind, body, soul, and so my body has to do something in order for me to feel like I'm in recovery. But I went the way that you're talking about, that Wiz is talking about. Everything I did was like pedal to girls and well, not drinking sort of when I drank, but not like it wasn't stopping me from, pills, competitiveness, right? Golfing. It's like, I want to fucking win it. We won this tournament of golf, and it's like, Cal, we better win this. And we're playing against like 80-year-old guys. And it's like, it's okay to just live, man. And not, there's not I was training like there was an end goal. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be ready for training camp.
Yeah.
And it's not an end goal for me. Like my recovery and my growth is not, it doesn't end, December 31st and I'll start again January 1st. This is like my recovery, my life depends on doing this stuff every day. The meditation, the gratitude lists, again, I'm not great at my girlfriend Tess. Oh my God. She's my inspiration because she does these things so diligently and she writes and I'm like, fuck man, you should be writing for the, Pulitzer Prize. Like she's that inspiring to me. But these little things that if I do day in, day out, just 3 things to be grateful for. It's always my kids. It's always, my girlfriend and health. And when I start with that and I start my day off with like, today feel good, have a coffee. And I just, some days I just look outside the lake and go, God, how did I get so lucky? That's a daily thing for me. That's my daily reprieve, right? Is that I get to be grateful for something and not like, oh man, I should be working. I should be in the gym. I should,
the shoulds. Yeah.
If I do this, if I work hard, I can do this. It's like, man, just, again, I think we talked well. It's like I keep my own side of the street clean, and everything can start from there. And so I maintain that attitude now of like, just do a little bit today. Just be thankful today. You have your health and that just serves me well right now to grow a little bit each day instead of trying to cram for the exam every day and be like, so, it's like we work all week, right? Or we don't, I don't, but your work week is you work so hard for 5 days just to decompress on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, so my life is like, I can't just do things for 5 days and then it's like every day a little bit, a little bit more, some days a little bit less.
Yeah, it's like taking moments, to pause and to be present with the moment, as you said, to look out in the lake and to have some gratitude for where you are today and how your health is. Totally. And, I think these practices you're talking about, whether it's a gratitude list or meditation or retreats, going for a walk, retreats, these things are important. And I think, what I just through my own experience, I would caution people, like try these out if you're not doing them, but also give yourself some slack. Like if you don't do them every day, it's okay. It's okay. Like do what works best for you.
Yeah.
Be present with it. Like don't try to say, well, Sheldon said that, Tess does these every day and she does this. And
Yeah.
That's what works for her.
For her, yeah.
That's great for her.
Yeah,
And for Sheldon, maybe he needs to have his cup of coffee. Like that feels really good. It's the ritual for him that feels really
Part
good.
of my routine.
Yeah.
No, it's, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel with my life as compared to other people. I don't need to compare. I don't need to be as spiritual as Cal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more spiritual than I was 2 years ago. That's good.
Yeah.
I hope that, the trajectory of my life is that I'm more spiritual next year.
Yeah.
That maybe when when the time comes, God willing, I get 3 years sober, that I'm more grateful on that day. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a project. And if my life just goes like this, it's good because it's great. My life is great. But that's such a good point of like I feel like sometimes you got to keep up with the Joneses and, me being in recovery and I don't, being a part of the program. Sometimes I see guys with 10 years and I wish I would have had 10 years. And I see guys who make their beds every morning. Like, I wish I made my bed every morning and I need to do that. And it's like, dude, time just takes time. I don't need to be as recovered as that guy. That's not where I am.
So true. And I'm so glad you brought that up because that's one of the main things where I stumbled when I was struggling was that comparison paradigm that, and I've talked about this before with the Teddy Roosevelt quote that comparison is the thief of joy. And when we start to look around and, I'm not doing as many meditative practices as this guy on Instagram who's like super spiritual or whatever, right? It's like, it becomes so silly. I've talked about being in the cold water, like using cold thermogenesis as a way to be present and to help your cells, turn over.
Totally.
Right. And it's like, well, Kyle stays in it longer than I do at a colder temperature. I'm not as good as...
Yes.
It's all these things that like, ideally you're looking at those people who are doing it as like, oh, okay, there's an idea of how it looks. Let me see how it works for me.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't get caught up in, you use spiritual. Maybe I'm being more spiritual. Like, another way for people, if spiritual feels a little too woo-woo, like just connected, just mindful, right?
A great word.
But like how did
mindful, aware?
Are you more connected to the people around you? You're more connected to who you are and why you're here on this earth. Like, have you dug into that? Have you had that kind of self-inquiry and really quieted all the noise from the incessant working out and the deep meditative practice that you're doing because you're supposed to, not because you're actually getting anything out of it? Like, think about the things you're doing and if add a sprinkle of mindfulness to it and really see how that shifts your day to day when you become aware of what's around you.
Yeah.
And you brought it up with the working out. I think it's a great example, especially for probably a lot of the listeners who are either in that state or have been through it. It's that trying to hold yourself to a standard for no other reason than you think it's what you're supposed to do, but it's really damaging you.
Yeah.
It's like you're putting way too many eggs. For me, I was putting way too many eggs in the fitness basket, and it was really hurting my relationships because I was so focused on being as fit as I could be that I was a complete asshole.
Yeah.
And it's like I couldn't see it because I was so in it.
Yeah, totally.
And so self-absorbed with it. And not in touch with how disconnected I was becoming.
It's all about balance, right? It's a life in balance. It's like, I know we worked out and that was important to you because you look good and people were seeing you and I was seeing you going, dude, you're fucking should be on the cover of the Cal, fucking way to go, daddy. You did, 50 pull-ups in a minute. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So there's a certain part of you that's again a bit of your identity, right? And I know for me too, it's like when people were seeing me work out or seeing me get in shape, like you look good and stuff. It's like but I don't feel that good, So for me, it's a life in balance. Again, it goes working out's a part of it. Going to listening to a podcast is some of it. It's not. I love Aubrey Marx's podcast and Kyle. I mean, these are guys who are manly men who are like walking the walk and have some beautiful insight into what that looks like. And they don't just say everything's perfect either. It has to work. But for me, it's like a life in balance. Some things get so out of whack. And even in recovery, like, I see guys who can go to a meeting, sometimes 2 every day. Mm-hmm. I can't. It's not that I don't need it. It's that but I go to the gym more than them. And that's a part of my spirituality. And you said it, the spirituality to me is just, I believe in something greater than myself. That's it. It's not God and going to church and that, I don't feel like that makes me spiritually fit. It's other things. It's exactly what we said. It's stopping in a moment of, oh God, this is pretty good. Life is pretty good. And it doesn't have to be in nature. So sometimes I sit there and I look at my girlfriend. I look at Tess and I go, life is so good. Mm-hmm. And I can have a little bit of awareness of the situation. I'm grateful for that particular moment. And it's not like this is, flip side is this is good, but oh my God, I wish I was on a beach and you know what I mean? It's like, there's so many things that I appreciate now that are like little wins. And I don't have to it doesn't make me more sober.
Yeah.
More meetings don't make me more sober.
Yeah.
And it's like, but there's things that make me feel good in sobriety that I'll keep doing. Mm-hmm. And so what works for me might not work for you. And what works for my sponsor isn't exactly what works for me. And that's the beauty of it. It doesn't have to. I don't have to. He doesn't tell me this is the way it works to get sober. This is the way it works to save your marriage. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. There's some guidelines. There's a bit of a blueprint to honesty, communication, right? Yeah. All that kind of stuff. But
yeah, those are right. Those are like values and ideas. They're not necessarily processes. And I think we get caught up in trying to reverse engineer. Well, Sheldon's living this authentic life. What are all the things he's doing? Okay, exactly. I'm going to take all the things he's doing, put him in my life because that's how you get there, right?
He looks so happy.
Yeah.
No, dude.
No, I'm being honest with myself.
Exactly.
I'm sharing vulnerably. I'm admitting when I'm wrong.
I'm grateful. I say I'm sorry.
Yeah,
dude. For me, me, the old me, and some of the work that you got to do to like say you're sorry. I mean, I do it in my relationship. Again, I'm not perfect at it, but I can be like that with in a relationship to a girl. Like I always felt like I had to be the. Man, this is my house. I'm going to do what I want. I bought this. I don't ask my mom for money and my dad. Like, this is me. Right. And so I'll do what I want in my own house. Mm. No, man. It's like, what makes that's a house, but what makes it a home? And my relationship is making my life whole. My kids make my life whole. And that takes sometimes admitting my kids are right. Mm-hmm. It takes, it takes to like, I got to parent my kids different than the way my dad parented me. It doesn't work for them. I'm not trying to get them to the NHL. Right. I'm not trying to toughen them up. And so these are things I'm learning. My kids are right a lot of times. And I'm not always right. I'm more wrong than I'd say I'm right. Mm-hmm. But these little things that I get to practice in sobriety are like, they're important. It's important to say your story. It's important to listen and not react. I can take a little time to think. I don't have to have an answer for you right now, Cal. Let me think about that, man. I'll call you later. It's not like I don't have to try to look stupid to try to be right.
Well, and I think a big part of my learning and growth and really just bringing a lot of kind of lightness and levity to my life has been this notion that I don't have to know. I don't have to have an answer. Certainly don't have to be right, but I don't even have to have it. Like, I don't have to know. Like, mm-hmm. I can be curious and, you can have your opinion and your experience and I can have a similar experience, but have a completely different truth.
Yeah.
My own truth about what's going on. And they can differ. And that can be okay. I don't have to try to prove mine is more right than yours. They can both coexist, and arguably they both should coexist.
Yeah,
we are going to have our own experience.
Seeing it through one lens. Life is not.
My 48 years have been way different than your years on Earth, right? And so that colors our experience just as much as being in that space does.
Yeah. There's a lot to be learned, I think, from, just being able to listen and especially, in my own experiences, like if you want to talk about hockey or something, I feel like I have an advantage over you in some of that.
Yeah.
In like real life, I don't think I can tell, Deepak Chopra how to be spiritual.
Right.
Right. I like there's things that I'm not as good at. And, again, in some of the things I'm learning in sobriety is like, you got to have a lot of humility. I have to have a lot of humility as well to be wrong, to not know, to not, not have my kids ask me something, to not know the answer to, Dad, when was the Empire State Building put up? Well, in,
yeah. How many times have we just been full of shit?
No,
I don't know, actually.
I don't know. Good question.
Yeah.
Shut up now. Get on your, but being able to have a little bit of humility and be grateful for the experiences I've gone through, and be grateful for that I had a career and that I had, not that it was, look at how great that was to be able to do something that I love to do. Not how it ended, but how it,
the gratitude.
The gratitude. And now it's like, the other thing is I don't live in the past. I tell my story. I'm glad I got a chance I feel comfortable telling you. I've never really gone into depth publicly about it before, but because I don't live there.
Yeah.
I live now. I live like moving forward. And I know how I want it to look, right? How I want my life to look. And that means to do that, I have to continue honing these little skills and the communication and authenticity and all these things that, the one day of sobriety adds up to two. And my relationship that started out with a movie with, my girlfriend is now, I can't see my life without her. It's like all these days add up to something. And then one day I'm at 2 years being sober, not wishing I was 10.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like I'm grateful for where I am now, and everything that's happened is great, and it's a story and whatever, but it's there's a lot to be learned and a whole book to still be written. And I'm glad I've had the experience I've had and some of the hurt I've had, because life is good today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I can be proud of, not saying, Cal, I'm fine.
That's right.
I can be proud of saying, dude, I'm good. What, I can't wait to come to Austin to visit you. And I know you're proud of me to see me healthy, and I'm proud of you to see you thriving in your marriage. And when I see Peyton, and you guys just talk to each other different and look different. And it's not like my marriage is better. Believe me, it's like I just see it. The proof is in the pudding of the way you're living.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that.
Well, with that in mind, I think we should probably wrap up. Obviously, like I said, it's a long time coming. So grateful to have you on, and obviously to share your story with all the honesty, which I knew you would. That's how you show up now. But where can people find you on social media, or what's?
My Twitter is @Souray. My Instagram is private. I feel like my life isn't that exciting right now to share it with everyone. I've learned that too. When I got sober, I cut out the social media. It's just more of a thing of like my pictures and I'll feel better. So I turned that to private. My friends follow my little wins with my kids or my dog or, but it's, that's Sheldon Souray 44. And some people I might know and accept the request. They might not know I'm on there, but
don't take it personally, folks.
Don't take it personally if I don't accept you. I don't like you.
But I think it's important that what you brought up, because I think it's something that all of us on some level are faced with, that this this connection to social media and the likes and the, being in the right relationship with that experience, I think is so important. And so I'm glad for you that you have taken the steps to really put that in a place that feels good for you and feels healthy.
Yeah, I've had to my life has been public in a lot of areas. And again, in not a good way, not a way that fulfilled me. So, there's a part of me that has to maintain some privacy. What I am open to and what anybody can do at any time is they could send me a message if they're struggling and anything. If they just, I respond to the messages that if people need help or they are, feeling a certain way, I'm always there for that. So reach out and that level for sure. But, there's parts of my life I keep private.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. I love you.
Thank you, buddy. I love it, baby.